for this May 26, 2026. Let's do we're gonna do the pledge of allegiance in a minute. Okay, I'll take it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, this segment's first. Let's go ahead and we're gonna go around the room and do roll call. We'll start with you. Go ahead.
That's it.
Who's going? Name.
Jeremy Felty, counselor, present. Terry Myers, counselor, present.
Dan Sheets, Mayor, present.
Jeannie Cuthbertson, counselor, present.
Fred Cuthbertson, citizen, present.
Wendy Evans, counselor, present.
Carol Williams, counselor, here.
Fran Ray, counselor, present. From the baby, citizen, present. Great, thank you. Great. So on the agenda, we have selection of the budget committee chair and the secretary. And I think in here, do we not have an explanation of what the chair and the secretary are doing here? Is it a magic?
Let me look if we did or not. I cannot remember. I did this over a month ago, so.
I think the chair is pretty self-explanatory. The secretary, generally, I was secretary once upon a time, and I took notes. So just committee chair, you're gonna get the gavel, and you're gonna be in charge of the committee, making sure we all stay in order. And then secretary, you're essentially just support and taking notes. And that's basically what we're looking for. So looking for, I guess, nominations at this point for budget committee chair.
I'll nominate counselor Jeremy Felty for chair.
Second that.
He's great at doing that.
After the by fire. That's how we do it.
What happened around here, sorry.
Any other nominations?
How it happened to me.
Anybody else?
Never like putting him in the hot seat for that.
Great.
Well, he did some studying, so I think he'll be good.
Maybe putting it to good use. All right, if there are any other nominations, let's go ahead and we'll do a vote to see if we're going to have Councilor Felty as our committee chair. So we can go around to all of the members of the committee and we can vote. I'll start with you, sir. Yes. Yes. All right. Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So now we need a secretary. Taking nominations on that now.
I nominate Mr. Cody Baker. Sure. I'll second that nomination.
Any other nomination? Okay. We'll go around the room. We're gonna vote. I'll start with you, Councilor Felton.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
very
thank
much.
you. I will help, don't, not like,
Yeah,
throw
absolutely.
it.
Well, I'm with the young folks.
Yeah, yeah. It's being recorded. The cards on the recording.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is
Thank
being
you.
recorded. TJ, we have a budget committee chair and we have a budget committee secretary.
Thank you, Mayor Sheets.
I'm handing the gavel back off to Councilor Felty, our chair.
Excellent. Thank you. At the direction of the chair, I will move forward with a presentation that gives an overview of the budget for this year and talk a little bit about what's in your budget packet.
Sounds great. Let's do
So-
it, TJ.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm going to. We also have on the agenda public comments before you dive into the overview of the budget process.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Sheets.
Sorry to step on your toes there, sir.
Are there any members of the public for public commentary of the 26-27 budget? Going once, going twice. All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, TJ, I think we're ready for the overview of budget process presentation.
Excellent. So you have a binder, a packet in front of you. That packet includes, of course, the budget that is publicly posted. It also includes some documentation about what we've done over this past year, what we plan to do with our capital infrastructure and operational budgeting, and kind of gives you a blueprint for some of the steps that we've taken in particular over the past couple of weeks and how those let us really move forward with the strategy that we've developed over these past couple of months for getting our funds aligned within the city of Monroe, and more importantly, also making sure that we're thinking about our future. So the budget process, I wanted to take a minute and just frame what we're doing here. The budget committee's responsibilities include a review of the proposed 26-27 budget. It is to evaluate revenues, expenditures, and reserves, discuss our operational and our infrastructure priorities. So that's looking at capital and operations. Consider long-term financial sustainability and recommend the budget to the city council for adoption. The 26-27 budget has some themes that I'd like to focus on. The first, which we've spent a good amount of time discussing, is infrastructure modernization. Utility system resiliency, so that's ensuring what we have in the ground now remains resilient and continues operating at a good cost. Long-term reserve planning, capital improvement sequencing. So when we do projects, putting them in a certain order to save money and time. And of course, most importantly, it's maintaining those core services that we provide. So a little bit about Monroe's current position in the budget. The strengths are really great to focus on here, especially because a lot of cities struggle in this right now. We have stable utility operations. We're actively planning our infrastructure. We have strong grant positioning. We have developed those regional partnerships that help us with technical assistance and funding. And most importantly, we've increased our strategic coordination across the board. We also have challenges. So those include infrastructure is aging. And as, of course, that infrastructure ages, it becomes more expensive to operate. With that in mind, we have limited operating flexibility. We have deferred capital needs. So we're, like a lot of cities and governments around the country, deferring things that need to get done that have large price tags. And those costs for operations do continue to rise, if nothing else, just due to the cost of increasing energy and other inputs. And this is all with limited staffing capacity. So we've taken a lot of steps to address those challenges in this budget. So some important budget concepts. Now you have a list of definitions in your budget packet, but I've pulled 4 of these out to focus on. So the first is operations. These are, of course, our daily services, those reoccurring expenditures that we have to make to keep the water flowing and the wastewater flowing and the sewer working. Capital outlays, that's a little different. That's long-term, big dollar infrastructure and equipment investments. Think the water treatment plant that we'll be working on. Contingency. So these are emergency funds intended to provide flexibility within each fiscal year. Things happen, as we know, and we need to budget to plan for those and account for those issues. They're usually expensive, and typically you don't have a lot of time to address them. And then finally, the unappropriated ending fund balance. In Oregon, in the state of Oregon, municipalities budget in an interesting way, where the time between when you pass the budget and when you receive your tax distributions leaves you in what I like to call kind of a cold winter. This unappropriated ending fund balance is intended to be there as beginning cash flow for that fiscal year, for that beginning fiscal year, while you're waiting for those funds to come in. Now, again, I want to encourage you all, please take a look at your definitions and other pieces of your packet too. Over the next couple of weeks, we're going to revisit key pieces of the budget, of the presentation, lots of opportunity to ask and answer questions. I'm not sure if I heard, was anybody going to ask a question in the room there?
Not at this time.
Okay, sorry, I thought I had heard something there. Okay. So I talked a little bit about this, what's included in the budget packet. Of course, you have your budget message. We'll touch on that in a minute here. You have your budget calendar, your fund summaries, the utility fund overviews, reserve fund summaries, LB forms, Oregon budget law forms, staffing and allocation worksheets. We have our transfer schedules as well as cost allocation methodologies. Now, you have the budget message in the packet. What I wanted to focus in on was some key pieces of that budget message that I think are critical to highlight. So one, the city is continuing to respond to prior audit findings over the prior years. We've done an excellent job, and I say we, I want to really elevate and highlight accounting specialist Flora, who's done a great job in not only building networks, but also going to classes and really getting everything that we needed to have buttoned up from that audit finding done. And that includes working together with me to develop batching processes as well as reporting processes during audit time. Another key finding from the budget message, improving financial clarity and structure. So we want to really explain why the money is flowing where it's flowing and what we're doing, both in the current year and long term. A big piece of the message, as you all know very well, we have transitioned back to an annual budget after our experiment with the biannual budget over the past 2 years. Another big component of the message is strengthening reserve and fund management. So we want to be thinking about the future. We want to be thinking about those contingencies, and we want to be thinking about major projects over the next 5 to 10 years, but also longer. And that kind of really speaks directly to that last point as well, which is aligning infrastructure planning with financial planning. So we have an organizational focus here, which is to build a clearer and more disciplined financial framework moving forward. I want to step back for a moment and ask, Dawn, do you have any comments in particular with regard to the packet structure and maybe more importantly, the budget message, that high level theory and structure behind what it is we're doing?
Nothing necessarily with the budget message. Towards the front of your binder, you'll find a few different pieces of information. One is the Public Works requested items for the year. And it's the spreadsheet color coded. And then the other one is in relation to our court costs, what it takes to support that during the year. Everything else is pretty much in a straightforward order. So we have our budget message, which TJ just kind of highlighted. We do have what it is to be a budget committee member, glossary. I will add those few things that we had spoke about during the beginning of it too, to including the secretary and chair, what those kind of go over during the process. Then we have our worksheets, which is kind of the input for the information on the spreadsheet, especially the beginning balances and any programs that we're going to be moving forward with. We then have our LB forms. It starts with the LB20, which is our resources, then the LB30s are following. The only difference is if it's a reserve fund or SEC, typically it's all on one page on the same form, a shorter form. Towards the back, you will find fund descriptions. We have some other reports back there going over the infrastructure challenges, specifically the utility funds and where those stand. And then at the very back, if you want extra light reading, we have every single line item we're currently including in the budget and how we've historically used it. So, and if you can think of anything else we should include for next time or moving forward to next year, we're completely open to suggestions.
The other thing, as you notice, as you look through the budget, there are specific lines that will have asterisks following the title, and you'll see those rather frequently. What budget law requires is that if you intend to retire a line item and remove it from your budget entirely, you have to keep it there for 3 years, zeroed out, and then you can remove it. Those asterisks are really our intent to slowly remove those over the next couple of years and phase in more intentional line items, a tighter, cleaner, more logical budget. So that's what you're seeing there. Some of the ones that have 3 asterisks are ones that have already, through council action, been retired over the past couple of years, and they've met their 3rd year. Others are on their way there. So you'll have a lot of opportunity, and we want to request that you take time to review these materials between now and our next meeting, which is 6 p.m. next Monday. And that is our first opportunity to pass the budget, although we do have the 8th, which is available as an additional date to, and I don't say pass, this is a budget committee. It is to recommend the budget. And so I suspect, given some of the detailed changes we'll be making this year and recommendations, that we may need until the 8th. We'll discuss that together as committee. Are there any questions about the structure of your packet now, or things that you'd like clarified before we move forward?
Doesn't sound like it, TJ.
Okay. Don, thank you. So this is, again, as I was briefly touching on, the budget calendar and process. Some key milestones: budget officer appointed, budget committee formed, budget message completed, budget committee review meetings. Those are what we're in right now. Then the budget committee will recommend the budget. It'll go to a public hearing with city council and eventually receive the adoption based on the budget calendar in your packet. So we want to talk a little bit about general fund overview. This is the lion's share of where the money is for any local government. Primary revenue sources for the general fund are property taxes, franchise fees, state shared revenues, and planning and permit revenues. Also things like events, and rentals. General fund pressures are things like rising operational costs, limited property tax growth under Oregon law. We talked a little bit about that when we discussed why an urban renewal district is helpful. Equipment replacement needs. We know that pain as well, right? When we realized that we needed a new tractor. And then we've also had some audit remediation and compliance costs. As we know, audit costs have been rather expensive over the past couple years. And one of our main goals with getting our budget where we want it is that we, as we've discussed before, expect those audit costs to reduce instead. So I want to talk a little bit about property taxes. Monroe hasn't increased its tax rate in more than 5 years. And Oregon property tax growth is structurally limited. Operational costs continue rising faster than recurring revenues. And like I said, the good thing is that we're still net positive, but the thing is that it's more difficult to save for reserves, and we're dipping into our reserves for operations more often these days. So a key policy question for council, and this is not a question that the budget committee or the council is being asked to recommend right now, but it's a key policy question that will become ever more present within the city. Is should the city consider increasing property tax revenues to support operation, infrastructure, equipment replacement, and long-term financial stability? So council, I look forward to talking more about that after we pass this budget and get moving forward into future meetings. It may not be necessary, but every city should always ask that question as a matter of practice every single year. And we are not alone in operational costs rising faster than reoccurring revenues. And sometimes the answer is not to increase. But I wanted to make sure that I put a pin in the question to ask it at a later date. Okay. So this is where I'd like to, really what we're going to do is we're going to go over these 3 funds right here. The utility systems overview. I'm going to overview this really quickly, and then Dawn, I'm going to ask you to speak to each of those funds in a little more detail. I know you manage those very closely on a regular basis. So first off, water fund is Fund 601, stormwater fund is 609, and the sewer fund is 610. Core observation here is that utility operations, again, remain stable, but our infrastructure obligations and our long-term capital pressures do continue to increase, and we've talked more about that in the past as well. A strategic focus for us right now is our infrastructure resiliency, and again, how we sequence our capital projects. I'd like to, Dawn, do you want to touch on these things? These are things that I think you probably could speak to in your sleep.
Sure. Total resources for water fund, 681.58. So this is the fund we go into when we are getting our utility bills from customers. We get our water rates, the usage, of course. And then the primary expenditures, a lot of it, unfortunately, electricity and treatment costs are a high portion of that, as well as operating and staffing the water system. Summertime, of course, has higher needs than other times of the year. We can only hold so much in our tank. So we do have to have some overtime, depending on the usage. The chemicals and labs as well. So any outside labs or chemicals we're getting, those costs are going up all the time. As well as maintenance or repairs of the system and distribution. Any capital projects we have going on, which right now we have some fairly significant ones coming up. We do have the grant as well to help with that, but we'll cover everything. And then any compliance related or system monitoring related components. And just to note that the water fund is the city's largest fund that we have as far as the amount of money flowing through it. Sorry. I got it.
Thank you, Don.
Yeah, stormwater fund, 147,978 is the current budget for expenses and resources. Those are the stormwater service fees, which are significantly lower. They're usually, I think they're a flat rate if I remember right. Any interest earnings we get from our LGIP account, that local government investment pool. We do have the drainage and ditch maintenance, the slough clearing and repairs required each year, stormwater system upkeep, and then the environmental compliance requirements as well. There's a lot smaller fund, a lot less money flowing through it, but there's always a risk that something significant could come up that we'll need to cover in that area. And then we have our sewer fund, 610. 428, 854 is the current budget for that. We have our sewer service charges, and then we also have consumption and hookup fees along with that. The expenditures in there include wastewater treatment operations, the pump station and treatment electricity costs, which can be pretty costly depending on the time of year, once again. Testing and chemical requirements, and then pipe and equipment maintenance, as well as repairs and replacement of system components as those go out.
Are there any questions on those three funds in particular?
I see we have, the biggest chunk in what, 601 was
Water.
And, I didn't see any engineering for the other two systems.
So I think they're in,
Well, it doesn't matter, I mean, I just want to know, I mean, we're probably planning water updates before we get sewer updates.
so we do have a small amount budgeted for engineering in stormwater, line 32.
Okay.
And then I think we've, correct me if I'm wrong, TJ, we put engineering in each of these utility funds for this upcoming year, correct?
That is correct. And I will say for those who are inquisitive and thinking ahead, and I think that if I'm right, I heard that was Councilor Myers. We will be, during our council session, separately, we'll be digging into a couple of details that are going to help you when you reconvene as budget committee think through these things. That's one of those items, and specifically, not only engineering as a total grant, or not grant, but a total contract award, but also where it's distributed to which funds.
Yes, I see it now. It's just a big chunk of water.
Yeah, and we'll go over that as a separate line item as council.
Yeah, Cody.
For the water fund 601, the total fund's not allocated. It says 100,000, which would take the operating expenditure plus the unappropriated end balance. But I see that math is not consistent with prior years. Look at the column before that, you see 191, which is 50 plus 75 plus 66. The interfund transfers plus operating contingency plus the unappropriated end balance. That is not the same for this year. And then I found three other funds. The map is also inconsistent.
So unfortunately, and TJ, correct me if I'm wrong, so some of these formulas were not correct in the prior years. Is that what your findings were as well?
Was that for me, Don? Was that directed
Yeah,
at me?
sorry.
Can you? I wasn't sure. I didn't hear the question very well. I didn't hear the comment from the budget committee member, and then maybe you can help me understand the question a little bit better that you just asked.
So he's looking at, so where we have our operating contingency, unappropriated ending balance, and then the total
Yes.
requirements not allocated. The calculation of that line item, because if you look in like the prior year, we have the 191 to 386, and then 50,000 unappropriated, 75,000 contingency, and then it looks like the interfund transfers are probably a portion of that as well.
So I'm looking at the UALB 30, right, for 201? No, for 601,
That's 601,
right?
Yeah.
And it's the UALB 30, right? Still.
yes.
Yep. 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Pull the transfers into the.
Yep, got it. So which line are we looking at? Are we looking at line 23?
28 to 32.
Yeah, the very last page for 601, yeah.
Got it.
It's just.
So- The unappropriated and unfunded balance.
The total requirements not allocated is what he's looking at.
Should be 125. Which would probably bring the total requirements down to.
The 100,000. So that's line 32. The total requirements not allocated, $100,000. What's the?
Yeah, so what he was questioning is if you look at the prior, the biennial.
Oh, got it.
shows- Yeah. But I
So-
suspect that what happened there is that the calculation was not correct. Because I found that in
no.
several areas.
Not necessarily, actually. If you look at it, first off, that's made up of our unappropriated ending fund balance and our operating contingency. So line 29 operating contingency, we've reduced down a little bit. So this is for one single year. This year, 100,000. Keep in mind that that was for a biennial budget, 191,386. That's on a par. That's in line with what we would see for this year. If you divide that number by 2, so it looks relatively in line. What I will say is that the operating contingency for this account was reduced just slightly because we've done a really good job of accounting for all of the capital expenditures that we expect to have this year, which is why you have Mark's spreadsheet that we'll look at and talk about a little bit more too.
So
But otherwise,
Sorry. I think what he was looking at, he noticed that the 191,386 that was there wasn't the 50,000 plus the 75,000.
oh,
Yeah, and
We
I
will-
found some calculating errors this last biennial budget that it wasn't
Carried over.
calculating the correct numbers, so.
interesting. We weren't really looking at the past budgeted calculations. We were really thinking about that column G, or what's column G on my screen, that column to the right of the lines. What we will do, committee, we can commit to looking at each of these lines and trying to figure out if there was an error or what might have happened there to provide a little more clarity on that.
Just to be clear though, we can't change the prior year.
No, we cannot.
We
We can't change
regardless,
anything.
So we can't change it, so.
We can just provide some explanation,
Yeah.
but most importantly, I think it's important to note that what we have in our lines are accurate formulas.
I know where that number came from. It's adding in the 66,386 from line 28.
Yeah, the interfund transfers, yeah.
And it's carrying down all the way through.
We'll take a look at it.
I was just wondering if it's correct, because. It was 2, and then I found it in a couple of other stuff, so I was just wanting to clarify.
No, it's a good catch, yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It is confusing when combining to.
It is. It's-
Part of the issue of like I said, the calculations got messed up during the biennium. I don't know if it was due to restructuring the time or what it was. But it definitely didn't flow through properly, yeah.
No, it's enough for me to want to take a look and understand what's going on there. This spreadsheet has been carried forward for some time now, so no, just my own curiosity. We'll provide some insight for council, for budget committee.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we talked high level general fund, then we talked a little about our utilities. About the general fund structure, just to provide a little more detail on this. Those core operations that we talked about, so things like things that we do every single day through the office, are funded through reoccurring revenues. Strategic use of interfund transfers is part of our strategy, so we want to start thinking more about how those interfund transfers can support operations as well as future capital outlays that we plan for. We want to be increasing our reserve stabilization, so that's part of our strategy long term. And more intentional contingency and unappropriated ending fund balance planning. So that's part of what Don and I spent some time talking about, what made sense and why we were using some of the numbers we were using. So an important observation here for this budget is that it reflects increased transparency regarding those transfers, our shared operational costs, and our infrastructure related obligations. And we'll talk more about how, for example, capital is more appropriately represented on one place rather than another. So it's a capital expenditure rather than an operational one. It's just one small example of some things that we've lined up correctly for this budget. Some other things that we've done in this budget, and this is very common across local governments. As you know, as we discussed, the lion's share of the money is in account 601. Account 201, which is Public Works, doesn't really fund itself very well at all. Stormwater and sewer both have a different mix of their own of revenues and requirements. And also, one of the things that we do is we allocate our operational costs as well as our capital costs across multiple funds. So, for example, vehicle and operations maintenance, you'll see that line show up in multiple locations across the budget. Stormwater, sewer, water, they all pay for their share. Audit and filing fees, same thing. Licensing, software, insurance, employee insurance, engineering, contract support, administrative staffing, all of that you're seeing distributed. And so one of the things we're providing to you separately is how they all bundle up as individual packages. That includes FTE for staff and, for example, engineering, we'll talk about later. Why this matters. So first off, it reflects our actual operational usage across those accounts. I'll tell you that Don and Amy spend a significant more time on water and wastewater than you might think, even though they're not out there twisting wrenches with Mark and Jacob and George. It improves this financial transparency as well. It supports our defensible utility accounts. So our accounting, rather, for our utilities. It's a defensible way to support that. And it also reduces our over-reliance on any single fund. That's really the crux of it, the core piece. You're distributing those costs in a fair way across the different funds. Staffing allocations. So we just mentioned this a moment ago. Again, multi-fund staff structure. That's with the administrator, accounting specialist, public works lead, utility workers, and admin assistants, all being involved in general government operations, public works, water systems, sewer systems, stormwater systems. Again, the purpose here is where we're saying the allocations that we're making are intended to better reflect our actual operational workload and our system support across those different infrastructure systems. Does all that make sense? And any question from anyone on that? The multi-fund structure and allocation?
So just so you guys know, towards the front of this, we do have our projects listed. And when all expenses go into each of those pieces that we're distributing out to the different funds.
And we'll also, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have an opportunity to dig into this a little further during our council meeting later on this evening, as well as in some of our future meetings. So if there are questions that come up later on as well, this isn't your only opportunity. Chair, do you want to give folks a few more moments, or would you like to move on?
Don, I'm going to tell you before, things I'm looking, what is LBRP?
I'm gonna add it to the glossary of terms because Counselor Felty did ask me as well. It's local government investment pool. That's where we have the majority of our SDC and reserve funds, a good portion of our money in general. So that way we're earning interest on the money that we have.
I know you told me a long time ago.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, you're totally fine. Yeah, it's one of our 3 different accounts. We have our Express Bill Pay, we have our Umpqua for Columbia Bank now, and then our LGIP investment pool.
I'm glad you said it again, because I wrote it as local government interest pool.
Well, we're getting interest, so.
Are there any other questions or commentary?
No.
And just so you guys know, I am aware, this middle column does have some numbering errors because I tried to do this alphabetically this year, so it made some sort of sense for myself when I have to put all these numbers into our system and follow where I'm at. So, some of these middle numbers, I will be renumbering and making sure it lines up, just so you're aware, and I'm highlighting those as well.
I think from our previous council meeting, there was a request to have this in like a Excel format.
Okay.
That's still an interest of people. We could get that done. Super.
TJ?
Yeah, so we did discuss that at the last council meeting. What I had mentioned was we may be able to produce a read-only version that we can make accessible to budget committee members so that they could look at this a little bit more detail. My goal was to get through this first meeting and then get a sense from budget committee if that's something they'd like staff to direct staff to do, if they'd like direct staff to do that now that we've met and convened.
Is seeking clarity, what kind of, is it in a program or software? Or is it just Excel?
We get those forms from Oregon Revenue Online. And then fill them out. So we put them into Excel. We use them on there, yeah.
Gotcha.
So it's a big giant. Go ahead.
I'm just accustomed to seeing things in a spreadsheet view, and I think I find it difficult to look at it in this format personally, but that's a me flaw.
Well, and everybody reviews things differently. Everybody's brains work differently.
Yeah.
And it does, I see it in both forms. For me, I don't even know what it would be like to just see.
Probably dream it.
Yeah, I do, unfortunately. Nightmares, dreams, you know.
We also do source of materials,
Yeah, it just helps.
make a nice report. I mean, I guess my thought process is, I don't know if we need, for this process, we need it in the forms, but for like a review process, could it be more like the raw spreadsheet?
On data, so that we
Raw
can
data.
manipulate
Yeah.
it in real time, I think, is.
So would you want us to have it at the next budget meeting and kind of change things as we're going? Is that what you're asking for? I mean, I don't think that.
Already done an Excel spreadsheet's entertaining, to say the least.
I think it's more for the outside the meeting.
Yeah,
It's
right.
reviewing it.
Yeah.
No, that's.
But if you're wanting to manipulate the data outside, so
Not manipulated,
Yeah.
just a deep dive, right? I'm not planning on manipulating data, especially if it's read-only, we aren't gonna be able
Yeah.
to do that.
That's
are you
exactly
interested in
why.
formulas, or are you more interested in the formulas or just the overall, so you can view it more easily?
All of the above, actually.
Okay,
Yeah, read only, we could put into a Tableau system and make it highlight things.
yeah.
Look for
But
discrepancies.
I'd be happy and fine creating a copy, a read-only copy. What I probably wouldn't want to do is create something where it's downloadable like as an Excel document. I think if you can reference it, which Tableau can do, it can pull in reference functions from web servers. What I would want to also do is make sure it's available just to the members of the committee. So if you have an email address, of course, all of you do through the city of Monroe, you'd be able to access it. But the most important thing I want to say here is that of the 300 some odd cities in the state and the 36 some odd counties, the core focus that we need to be making sure that we're doing is looking at the logic and the intent behind what we're doing and making sure the budget balances. If we're doing that, have at it forensically. Create all the pretty tables you want and check everything you'd like. But what I really want to make sure of is, as a committee, that we're meeting our requirements, which is a very, very, very high level process. And then, in fact, the city council itself will go into a little bit more detail. So we can create that if you'd all like, and we can make that available to you as committee members. Is that the request of the committee?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we're not looking at, from my perspective, that helps me immensely from my perspective. But if it's, a strain on resources, then I'm open to looking at other options. But you have to let me know what's the hesitation here in moving forward, because I sense hesitation.
No strain on resources whatsoever. It's really just making sure that the data remains contained because it is our working files. Those are that's the most important piece. No problem cracking open the books for a budget committee. I will say this is, like I said before, it's cool, but it's the first committee I've had asked that, so that's why I was surprised at first. But no problem with it at all. If you want to go back, check the work, make sure things are looking right. If it helps you ask questions and get to your recommendation better, absolutely, I want to support that. But I also want to make sure that we don't get lost in the weeds.
Got it, understood. Yes, I'd like to move forward with that plan, please.
Okay.
It's easier for Ken into City Hall to do.
Some of us can, some of us travel for work, and I'm literally not gonna be able to do that. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be down, but I'm bouncing all over the US here.
And TJ, it sounds like there is interest not only in seeing the worksheet, but kind of seeing the formulas that
Of course.
are being pulled. That way, they can see what all the information is pulling for that specific line.
Yeah.
Yes. And that makes sense. And one of the things I'll encourage is that when we get through this presentation and over the next couple of meetings, we're going to get into that granular detail. We're taking you through the full ride. And so if there's more that you'd like to see, or if you do want to create pie charts and graphs, cool. But I promise you that we're giving you the full detail. All right. Reserve fund overview. So again, this is our first meeting, so we're really just kind of hitting the high level. Reserve fund support. So what are we doing with it? These are things like equipment replacement, modernizing our infrastructure, keeping, emergency resiliency. So if we need to react to some sort of emergency or issue, long-term capital planning, and then of course, financial stability. That's what our reserve funds are there for. The key principle here is reserve funds are intended for those long-range, long-term sustainability focused projects, not routine operations. Here's some details specifically about our reserve funds. So our equipment reserve, the purpose for that, of course, is to replace equipment. Currently a balance of around 15 grand. Our building reserve, it's for facility improvements. Around 54,000 is what's there. Parks improvements is around 25,000 currently. Water reserve, that's specifically for water infrastructure. That's 129,000. Now we're thinking about long-term water infrastructure projects, right? When the end of the useful life of the water treatment plant arrives. That is not the same as updates, upgrades, renovations, modernizations to the water treatment plant like we have right now, which is what you're seeing at that bottom line there. Wanted to make sure that we're identifying that water infrastructure line is really more long-range planned infrastructure upgrades. Sewer reserve. So wastewater infrastructure is what that's there for. We have capital improvements intended for flexible capital planning. Water bond, water revenue reserve bond. And then that's debt support, essentially. We're servicing our debt. And then water system, the capital improvement project reserve, the major modernization projects. That's where that $1.5 million is parked, alongside another roughly $150,000 that we've socked away over the last couple of years, because as we know, costs increase, and we do in fact expect the cost for that project to go over the 1.5 million that we received from the state. An important note is that that is specifically in a reserve fund, though, and not in an operations fund. Okay, so a little about our utility financial position. So increasing long-term infrastructure obligations is a big piece here. Our systems are aging, and you're hearing some themes, and that's intentional. We have regulatory compliance. So we're currently under a regulatory order with our TTHMs for the water. We have gotten ourselves back into compliance with DEQ over this past year through a lot of hard work. But, you know, we still have equipment replacement and things that need to happen in order to bring our systems up to where they have to be. That also includes expected and sometimes unexpected modernization needs for our capital projects and infrastructure. And also resiliency planning, things like adding an additional wastewater line for redundancy. An observation is utilities remain really operationally stable. But the key discussion is how should the city balance current operations and reserves with capital planning and long-term infrastructure? I want to open this up, Don, if you have some comments, and then I'd also open it up for questions from committee if there's also recommendations or ideas.
As far as, I mean, you know, we can always do utility rate reviews. Overall though, I think that we're covering the base costs. It's just if anything major happens, there's that piece, right? The reserve accounts do help some. But we just don't know what to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, did we have a reservoir mixing?
So I asked Mark about that. He's supposed to get some clarification. Our understanding is that the mixing only happens like every 3 years, I think. Some things are annually, some things are every 3 years, some things are every 5 years. Some things you do the inspection, and then if it needs cleaning, like the reservoir, then you clean it. Last year we did the inspection, we didn't do the cleaning, so we had some money left over from that piece.
Well, I thought we were gonna look at putting in a mixing system to.
Oh, yeah. TJ, that is on the capital.
Yes.
Is that on for the reserves, right?
So, yeah, so that's in the feasibility report and spelled out as one of the costs associated with the water modernization project. We had also set aside some separate capital for that in the past. That's part of that extra 100 or so change in that reserve fund. But it is packaged into that work.
We also have some in the water system development.
Water SCCs. Those I can't really speak to the SCCs as strongly as you can, but my understanding is we have to unlock those with the plan.
capital.
Yes. So, a quick comment on that. Whenever somebody, as you all know, whenever somebody builds something new, they have to pay into their fair share future use of the infrastructure systems that they're going to plug into. And so that's water, wastewater, sewer primarily, as well as things like parks. Cities usually have a few more than that as well. Now, when the city itself wants to go and expand the infrastructure in the future and use those funds, they have to do so with direction from a capital improvement plan or a CIP. And they have no legal authority to use those funds until the CIP is developed, because what it does is it puts price tags on projects. It develops an intent for the project, what's the benefit or the outcome of it. And it also gives a system for a 5-year, 10-year capital outlay of when it's actually going to get built and done. And so what they want to make sure you do is that you just don't start taking that money and throwing it after things randomly and chipping away at what should be a large nest egg that builds interest through your LGIP account. And that you're doing it methodically, intentionally, and with a plan. By the way, by the end of this year, along with our comprehensive plan, the capital improvement plan is one of the pieces that we'll be working our way towards after we get through budget. And then starting next year, when we're going to need it, we can start accessing those capital funds for our infrastructure projects, like the wastewater line under the bridge and things like that. So no, we can't touch them yet.
Well, do that.
Yeah, those SDCs, if you're not familiar with them, we have a significant amount of money sitting in there that we cannot touch. It's
So frustrating.
significant. And I'm not sure, how are we breaking out, are the SDCs broken out per fund?
They are.
Yes.
So those are the 500 funds. They are, let's see, so you'll see the event funds.
I'm looking at the LB 20, so it's Fund 511, Water System Development Fund.
Yeah.
Yeah, take that one as an example.
I'm on it. So what's the question? Sorry, Councilor.
So it says SDC water, but I don't see anything in the account, or am I looking at, I could be looking at the wrong line.
So the 524,800 is resources, kind of the top middle.
Okay.
And then on the next page, because right now we have those retired line items on there that we're still having to show. On that next page, you'll see the requirements matching that, the 524,800. And right now we have the broad water reservoir mixing system at 75,000. Then the system enhancement 449. The kind of towards the top of that second page.
And Don, also, Councilor Williams, this is a good opportunity to point out those asterisks. Part of the prior thinking from the proposed staff budget was, let's go ahead and tuck, the water reservoir, the water master plan, rather, SDC methodology. There are a lot of things in there that didn't belong in there that we've now retired.
So are we going to be, or as part of the conversation tonight, whether or not we're going to go ahead and remove those lines moving forward with the next budget
Yeah.
meeting? That way it's cleaner?
Yep. So one of the things I wanted to discuss was the fact that there was, well, actually, go ahead, Don, with make sure I'm touching on the same thing. Your question again?
So are we going to be moving forward? So this could be something that the budget committee needs to recommend. I don't know how this works exactly, but removing those lines basically that have been retired, so they have the 3 asterisks by them, so that it's cleaner moving forward in the next meetings.
Oh, I see.
What was
Yeah,
it
so technically
with
we
that?
could remove those now, I think. We need to confirm that, Don. Make sure that asterisk is actually meaning we can remove now. So it's been a full 3 years that they've existed.
Yeah, yep. Okay.
Is it but does budget committee need to make that recommendation, or can you, is that just normal operations for you?
It's operations.
Okay, we were just kind of showing them and then explaining the process. Is that?
Understood, thank you.
It would look a lot cleaner. If we can delete them now, Dawn will look into that. If we can delete them now, we'll go ahead and do that.
Reconfirm, and yeah, I can always touch out with the revenue team as well.
So I'm still a little bit confused. Sometimes I'm still on the uptake people, I'm sorry. But so each of these funds, do we have SDC reserves for, like, I see SDC storm under storm system development 510.
Yeah.
But how do we know that that money that's in there, it's allocated for that is specifically gonna be for storm? Because SDCs are collected per fund.
So actually, and I don't know historically, I have to go back. So right now, we have one person paying on SDCs. When they pay their SDCs, it does have a certain amount going to each fund.
It does?
Yes, it
broken
does.
that way?
Yeah, so the BAS codes are tied to or line item codes
Okay,
in the Springbrook system are tied to that payment, and it does apply a certain percentage of each of those to the
That's helpful.
specific SDCs, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have the ability to change the percentage of how they're held.
I believe that would be a council or plan.
Yes.
Decision, right, TJ?
That would be a council action. And then what you'd want to do is you'd want to do a study on your SDC methodology to support either keeping or moving to some other reason for some specified purpose. But yes, that does exist.
okay.
That's good to know,
I
right?
did not know that.
Yeah.
So on the street system development one, I noticed it doesn't have an LGIP.
Sorry, Councilor Ray, what was it?
It's 509.
509?
Yeah, the other ones do. I didn't see one on the street. I see it's over on the left hand from the three historic, but it's not even the proposed budget. I see it now.
So what happened with this LGIP interest, I don't remember if it was during the biennium. I know that when we did our supplemental budget, we kind of went over what we were doing with different LGIP interest amounts. And that's something that can be taken care of through council as well, correct, TJ, if they want to distribute that differently through the LGIP interest?
Yes, exactly.
The same.
So what happened was a lot of the LGIP interest started going towards the building reserve because we were under the impression that we would need to either rent something over there or replace City Hall in the short run. And so it had been redistributed before the former CA left, and I didn't want to make any changes. So we left it as was, I believe, during the supplemental, other than putting a little more, and I think it was water and yeah.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So the thinking here is putting interest towards from LGIP towards the street fund. What I'd prefer to see is a transfer to the street fund intentionally to fund future items. That would be probably the best way to do this. I did notice that there was a very small interest amount, really negligible, and I think it's smarter to make sure, especially for accounting purposes, that if we're distributing interest, we have a very intentional way of doing that, and we know why it's going where it's going. So are there other questions or thoughts on things like reserves, capital planning, long-term infrastructure? Questions on maybe plans and how we intend to do that? Is there anything that this committee would like to know?
Are we gonna cancel out the city events reserve fund totally?
Yes.
We actually had transferred the funds from that to GA during the last council meeting, there was a resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I was just wondering, because you only have 3 dots on part of it.
yeah, some of them, like, yeah. Some of them, like, we'll have to eventually retire it out, but we still have to do each line item.
Right.
That's what I was thinking.
Painful process.
That's all we call it.
So all those other lines are because we just did that this year.
We didn't, yeah. If we didn't use it in the last 3 years is when it gets an asterisk for each year, yeah.
And one of the things the committee, we don't need to get into the level of detail on that now, but one of the things we'll be looking for from the committee as part of your recommendation and the council's approval is the eventual removal of that account to just simply retire it entirely. A reserve account is really intended, like we were talking about earlier, for large future capital expenditures, and events doesn't fit that super well.
This is the, feels like a Monday where it's Tuesday and everybody's.
And like I said, if there are future questions, what I want to encourage a couple of things. First off, if there are individual questions pops into your mind, feel free to email both Dawn and myself. If you email one of us, we'll make sure the other one gets it too. We'll get back to you and we'll be able to either respond directly if it's something simple, or bring it to the full group at the next meeting if it's something that we should really address. And the same goes with just ideas or things that you might want to suggest as well moving forward.
I have a feeling between this meeting and the next one, there'll be questions.
There will be questions, yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely.
I need it to percolate a little
Yeah,
bit.
that's what I'm kind of sensing myself. Yeah.
It's a lot to review and go over.
And you're right, it's like-
Just wait, there's more.
Yeah, think about that way.
No, we need.
So we'll.
But I will tell you that I really enjoy the format of this, the way that it's been presented and laid out, I think is spectacular. So good job. Kudos to you, Don. And TJ, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we worked really hard on this, and this is excellent collaboration. And hopefully, it makes sense. That the goal is that this makes sense to the public as well as to the committee, and you see the intent behind what we're doing. So hopefully, we hit that goal.
Definitely, thank you.
Absolutely. So the next slide I want to touch on is the debt obligations overview. So we've got a couple of things. One is our water revenue bond. That supports our prior water improvements, things that we've already done, we're still paying for. We've got an annual payment of approximately $31.93. One of the things that we will discuss at our next meeting is whether or not we want to transfer some funds in the account where that lives. Currently, the funds are higher than that dollar amount, and we're coming up on our last payment. So we'll get in the weeds on that a little bit later, but there might be some money that we can transfer. General obligation bond. So this supports our wastewater infrastructure currently. The annual payment is approximately $137,000, and we expect to pay that off in 2030. So the key observation here is the city's current major debt obligations do remain currently in good standing and on schedule, which is excellent, of course, for the city's reputation moving forward in case we need to do more of those in the future. Audit and financial stabilization. So we talked a little bit about this, actually a good bit about this over this past year. So current environment is we're still working under our remediation work with both the state and our auditors. We did, as you know, had material findings from the prior audit cycles, which we've addressed. We've increased our audit complexity, and I mean that in terms of how well we are tracking the dollars, not necessarily in terms of staff time. And then also we've made sure that we are implementing new GASB reporting requirements and following the ones that we're supposed to be doing already. Our long-term goal is really a transition towards stronger internal controls, better and improved financial documentation. We want to reduce that audit complexity. Now, I will say again, that doesn't involve staff time. Although I can't say that's totally true, Don, because you spent a lot of time having to go back and forth with the auditors. They weren't the only ones working. Am I right there? I think that's correct.
Yeah, there's a lot of back and forth emails. They might find something they want more information on.
Yep.
July is definitely gonna be a pretty intense month.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of work there. We're not done after this process. Um, but the goal here is really to reducing the audit complexity, not only for our auditors, but I suppose also for staff. Um, and then long-term financial stability is ultimately our goal here. So some discussion topics. This is the crux of what this committee should be really talking about and making recommendations regarding property tax considerations, something that you can really look at maybe from a high level, but we aren't including in this current budget or any time in this next year. Our reserve fund philosophy. So why we're reserving, what we're reserving, and what we might want to build in the future. You all have received a lot of information regarding our capital phasing strategy over the next couple of years. And again, that sequencing, what it looks like, are we budgeting right for it? More eyes, the better. If there are suggestions or things that you'd like to run through committee, now's a good time to do that. Utility sustainability. It looks like very clearly that our operations are being covered currently by our revenues. Are there other things that we could be doing? Are there suggestions that you've heard from other places or other cities? And then, of course, our equipment replacement planning. We will have an opportunity to dig in deep. I'll actually show this in just a moment here, but we'll come back to it again. Is Mark's what I call Mark's wish list, and you'll see that the items that are green on that wish list were authorized in this budget, and the items that were red are not. And then there'll also be an opportunity for Mark when he comes back from vacation in a week or so to speak to items that maybe were excluded, but he thinks should be included. And then also, again, long-term operational stability. That's really the big piece that I want to encourage committee to talk through. Are there other discussion areas, other discussion topics besides these that the committee would like to be sure that we include in this process? All right. I'm happy to go back to that screen if anybody would like me to, but just a quick check. Did you see a new screen appear? City of Monroe fiscal year budget?
Yes.
All right, good deal. As you all know, just for the benefit of the public and the committee, where's my mouse? There it is. That includes this budget message. That's what we summarized just a little bit ago. And all of the documentation that includes the role of the municipal budget committee member and glossary of budget terms and everything else that we just discussed is here in this packet. A couple of things that we'll go ahead and just hone in on really quickly. Here we go. So,
In front of your package.
Yep, this is a little more detail, and this is what Don and I were discussing a little bit ago when we talked about multi-fund distributions of cost. These are the places that vehicle and operations maintenance, which is a total of 16,500 being distributed. Copier maintenance and service, postage and mailing, auditing and filing fees. So one of the things that we did is we looked really at the granular, almost really forensic level of all of the different operations, what I call programs, of course, right? Really within just basic operations of the city. And how much are they, and where do they get distributed to, and how much are we budgeting to each line? Same thing with general liability and auto. Bill pay fees, license and fees for things like new software. I'd like to take a moment here to hone in on a little more about our engineering in particular. So $75,000 is a tripling of the current contract that Branch Engineering is operating on right now. As you all likely recall from last year, we're coming up, we have maybe, I think, 2 months left on our current contract before we're required to go back out to bid. We had a simple 1 year, 12-month contract, not to exceed 25,000 or 12 months. So we'll go back out to bid. We do hope to keep Branch Engineering on board. Nevertheless, we're allocating $75,000, which is a bold amount for a small city like ours, with the intent to support development review committee for those large projects and developments in the city that are commercial in nature, that have big infrastructure elements, as well as to support the 1135 dam removal project and the engineers that get selected during that process, as well as our water modernization project, and just doing the business that they do for us on a regular basis too. So general administration, we allocated about 5%. You'll see the lion's share, which makes perfect sense, right? We're focusing heavily on the water system this year. We allocated about 52,000 to the water system. Only about 7,500 to streets. I really think that that's only going to be a component of the different projects that are developments, if there are any, or street infrastructure that needs review. So limited. And the same goes for storm and sewer. So that's just the basic breakdown for you there. We also have staffing. So one of the things that I've done is I have reduced significantly the amount of money for the city administrator position. And the intent there is to reduce down hours to 30 hours a week, focusing specifically, like we've talked about, council, you'll be hearing about this in detail later, in quite detail. But really allocating more costs to other departments while focusing on the core things that you absolutely need me to do, like the capital infrastructure projects and core budgeting elements. So one of the things that we've also done is we've, the accounting specialist, Dawn, we've distributed hers, mine, the administrative assistant, both 1 and 2 at 0.5 FTE. And council, you've had a lot of discussions about this, getting us to this decision. And you can see how we're distributing the work, or each hour essentially, or each dollar for each individual on the team. And then also here's Public Works, Mark, and his team as well. We've got one person at 0.75 FTE and one at 0.5 FTE currently. Those are the key pieces in the budget that I wanted to draw your attention to, because from here on, we start getting even more into the weeds. I want to stay at a bit of a higher level for this meeting and make sure that you all knew that we're distributing and how we're distributing those costs. Any thoughts on that, questions before I move on to Mark's wish list?
Appreciate the detail. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Something we've asked for in the past.
This is true.
Okay. So one of the things I asked Mark to do almost immediately after coming on board. So we're almost a year ago at this point now, maybe 8 months ago or so. I said, Mark, we're going to have a lot of capital expenditures. We didn't really ever in the past think like this in terms of what are the things you know you're going to need to spend this coming year. So what we would do is what a lot of cities do. You just pad your contingency and hope for the best. And so what I wanted to do was make sure that we're being as predictive as possible about what kind of expenditures are realistically going to hit which funds, and then bake those directly into those funds now. So part of that spreadsheet you all wanted to look at actually is this came from the budget spreadsheet. and it directly references into account 610 and 601 and so on and so forth. The expenditures that we felt were appropriate. So here's how it went. Mark put down an item in a category and a requested amount that was based on Mark's research. You'll actually see some hyperlinks on some of those. What I did is I adjusted some of those numbers, and that's based on either discussions with Mark or with Chuck, Mark and Chuck, or clarifications. For the most part, you'll see that those numbers are really exactly the same. The two new air compressors, Chuck thought 25,000 for two residential, essentially residential / commercial grade air compressors, like replacing what we have in there now. 8,000, he said, would buy you like digital nice ones, more than enough. So I reduced that down a little. Otherwise, everything on this list, just as a quick blush before we dig into the details, is the same dollar amount between those two columns. So, back up to the top. Let me focus in a little bit on what was not included. So there's aerators. Now, what I mean by that is aerators could theoretically actually be installed at the bottom of the ponds where our wastewater sits during the summertime. And the idea, I think, is that they would provide more oxygen to the little bugs that eat the waste that live in there. And it would provide more efficiency. But I spoke a little bit more with Chuck about this, and Chuck says, maybe, but we need to look at that in a little more detail. These aerators actually started as a discussion from another city that had them available on surplus, and we didn't get those at the time. But it kind of got Mark thinking, like, could we do this? Could we get them? So it's not in this budget. It's really not a necessary component. Certainly at 150,000 for something that we're not certain is going to work. However, I will have Mark talk with you about that, and Chuck will be there as well. And we have had a little meeting of the minds already too. We are including the water plant generator, by the way. That is a necessary element. As well as the new membrane filters, we're reducing down to 5,000 instead of 50,000. The reason for that is because of the water modernization project, we're moving away from membrane technology. As a result, I wanted to make sure with Chuck, I actually had a long conversation to make sure I wasn't making a mistake here. I asked him, can I safely remove that, assuming that we're done with membranes? And he confirmed that I was reading the feasibility report correctly, and that is absolutely a fact. And so as soon as we have a new plant, we won't be using membrane anymore. We just want enough money to replace the ones to keep operating until the plant is completely overhauled. A couple things that Mark won't be getting this year: automatic gates at the water plant and wastewater plant. That's actually supposed to say the first one water and the second one wastewater. 20,000 a piece, 40,000 total. I told him he'll have to get out of his truck and unlock the gate manually for another year. Same thing with camera systems. Camera systems from the water treatment plant rather, in the park. We won't be. Yeah, please.
On the camera systems, I presume those are monitored camera system prices. Could we get one that goes to a DVR that we can record ourselves?
Yes, we could do that. That's what we have at the city hall right now, kind of doing them in steps. We upgraded at the MCC for a number of reasons, but we don't have that need at the park. That is a great idea.
Yeah, so you could do it for about 10% of what you're showing.
Absolutely.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
That I'm probably thinking of something else, but at one time, something to do with the gate and something to do with the cameras had to do with compliance issues for security for the water plant. So are we sure that we're still going to be in compliance if we don't? I just want to make sure that we're doing, the right stuff and at least falling into compliance. Does
Yes,
that-
ma'am. Let me
Okay.
qualify that with, I'm not the expert here. That is my understanding, but when we do sit down with Mark and Chuck, that is what we will absolutely confirm. So it's red right now, but if there's any reason that this committee finds to recommend that we bring it back into the budget, that's something we absolutely can do part of this process.
Okay, that's good. I just wanted to make sure that we were okay with that.
I know it was part of the same conversation that we had with Chuck when he was here and going over the compliance equipment, so.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we're not, that we've got that.
Absolutely. There's a lot of equipment that Mark just has to have, like a commercial zero turn mower, 2 new air compressors for the water treatment plant, wastewater sampler, things like a dump trailer, a lot of different tools, probiotic scrubber. Some of these things have to be included, but they're high enough to be capital assets. Of course, pump repair for the water plant. Just a lot of different things that he's including in his budget, even down to things that we know we're going to have to buy that might support events or just everyday activities like traffic safety barriers, safety lights. And you can see which accounts we're billing those to. By the way, for those of you who want a quick reference, 201 is Public Works, 601 is Water, 609 is, help me out here, Dawn Storm. I got it. And 610 is Sewer. Oh, it actually says it right there, too.
I have a really quick question. I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly. So the line items that are in like a greeny yellow, those have been allocated to the appropriate fund, right? But the ones
Yes.
that are highlighted in red, that's not going to be included in this budget cycle.
Right now,
So what about the ones that are just white, but they still have a fund attached to it? That's been allocated?
so TJ, the 2 that have the, or actually there's more than 2. The ones that are in white but don't have red, highlighting the words, are those
Yep.
included or not?
So those are ones where I want a little more clarification. My understanding, like for example, the one trash pump, does Mark need it for all 3 accounts, or does he just need it for the 2? I'm not sure what's going on there. Is it $4,500? I thought it was around 3,000 was my understanding. So I'd like a little clarification. Storm North 9th, same thing. We're going to talk with him about that. I didn't categorically exclude it, but I also didn't say, oh, okay, sure. Paint line striping machine, I question if we need that, or if that's something that we're better off farming out like we do now, to the county or to a private firm. And then also things like toolbox for the shop. I think $7,500 is awesome. I did click that link. It's a super cool toolbox, but I'm just not sure if we're going to include that this budget cycle, given some of our other constraints. So that's what those are.
Thank you.
Toolbox does not have a fund next to it, is there a reason?
Yeah, I think Mark was like, I don't know, I guess you could assign this to all of them, and he would be right essentially, because we would, in essence, I asked him to assign it to the fund that whatever the thing is most used for, but as you know from this discussion, we would distribute it across multiple funds, so I think he just left it blank because he wasn't sure what to put there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Home Depot, $7,000.
That was actually the final piece. Well, let me see
The
here.
court piece, is that something we're going over this afternoon?
Yeah, it is. I actually have a presentation slide for you later, so we can talk about that as council separately. For budget committee, though, this might be important for you to understand as a committee before council forms. Very quickly, we have spent the last couple of months, I've asked Dawn to track the number of hours that she's spending on court. And those are little hours that kind of are 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, that aren't necessarily accounted for in the clerk court wages line of just under $2,000 for the year. Because those are things like planned court appearances and things like that. Even with it budgeted, we're losing about $1,000.36 per year. I think it's significantly larger than that. I think it's safe to say that Don's probably spending between 30 to 60 hours per year, which would put us, closer to a couple of $1,000s in loss. And you can very clearly see, in terms of what we're budgeting and what we're expending, we're going over on most of these lines, and we're not bringing in. I'll show you on the slide I have later. It's actually not here, but we're bringing in just over $5,000 right now. Even though we're expecting during the last cycle in particular to bring in 10,000, we actually brought in 5, so about half of that. Because of that, one of the things to note, and again, we'll discuss this as council too, but Don, do you want to speak to this piece, this note down here? This is your verbiage and your point.
Yeah, so with the hours being taken into consideration, that's a very minimal training. That's with me just getting my CGIS certifications, maybe reaching out to another court because there was no real training. I just kind of got handed to me. This is not keeping up on every bit of training I should be doing to properly run the court. And there's files in the back where I could, if I had time, go through them and do more collections. I've just been going with the most recent and back, and that's why we're getting the revenue we are. With our current tickets, they're between like $165 and $200, and then the state gets $50, and then the county gets $16. Everybody's getting their piece. By the time we're done and we pick the judge and everything, what are we really gaining from that process? So yeah, the collections piece, and that is a very labor intensive thing. I have to write certain letters in a certain order, make sure I'm dotting all my I's, crossing all my T's so that everything's just so on there. And then the judge has to review it when he comes in. So this could actually end up being even more hours per year spent on this if we're going to do it properly. I really don't know that it's a benefit at this point to keep the court with how few tickets we have coming through. And then we also do have audits I think it's 3 years. I've done one so far, and that's a good half day to a day's worth of paperwork and going through the system with the auditor.
What's the cadence of those audits? Is there?
So they want to see how we're storing our files, where we're gaining our information from. And currently I don't even have lead certification. It's not even worth it to get lead certified and retain that. So we're actually getting our files currently from Benton County and reaching out to them each time we do have.
Is it like an annual event or is it just?
It's every 3-ish years, I think. Okay. Yeah, so it's only happened once since I've been here. But she really walks through everything and wants to see, people's certifications. She wants that we have the judges' information that we need. That the files are only reachable by the people that have CGIS certification, which last time they weren't. So there's a lot to it actually. It can take time.
And council, go ahead, please.
What does it look like if we don't have court in Monroe?
My understanding is if we dissolve it, are you asking what it looks like as far as what would happen with? So my understanding is that if we dissolve, it would get taken over, probably in our case by Benton County, where we would basically transfer all the files up to them. So that's my understanding as of right now. I haven't spent a whole lot of time looking into it until it's finalized or.
I'm just wondering, do we still get revenue from that? Is it?
You're correct on.
We give it up.
So, yeah, but if we're losing now.
Yeah, we're already in the red.
Yeah, we're already going back.
Exactly.
It might be worth.
Because they can only cite into the city court in the city limits. Anything outside the city limits on territorial limit, they cite to the county court. So
Yeah.
And historically.
the only violations that are actually happen, traffic violations within the city limits. Now, will this also include any code enforcement violations? Are you going to lose that?
We haven't historically used it. The only one we had was the one larger case, with the Airbnb or whatever that situation was. But other than that, we have not used it for code enforcement. That would be the only other advantage. But even then, there's only so much that Judge Blake can do if they don't show.
So committee, I'll say really quickly that we have a lot of needs for our staff time right now, and in particular Dawn's staff time, as her position continues to evolve, focus more on the budget and more higher level work. We'll talk about this during council, but there are several other considerations, including the space itself and the kinds of investments that we'll need to make in that space if we really wanted to continue long-term meaningfully as a court. And then the biggest piece, of course, is the revenue. It doesn't make sense to continue to operate court at a loss when essentially what would happen is all of those cases would, as Dawden said, go directly to Benton County. And I don't think that there would be any, I mean, thinking of code enforcement, I can't think of any other thing like that would potentially provide any revenue in the future that we'd be leaving on the table now to consider at this point.
Question, as Menard grows, so in the future, can we get the court back if we resolve it now?
Absolutely. Court is not, yes, you can absolutely reestablish court, but I want to say that Dawn's point really should be, it deserves large consideration, because the amount of time that she would have to spend in order to really be doing this the right way would be significantly more time than we're spending right now, which would mean increasing those losses for no significant returns. And again, the capital expenses associated with the court. On top of that, it would be difficult to propose a budget in the coming cycles that would allow for that.
I have a question that's not really, it is somewhat related to this, but when is our contract up with Benton County Sheriff?
It was signed in June 30th of 2024 for 2 years. It was like a couple weeks before I came on board with the city, so it will continue until about June of 2020. 2027. It was signed in 27.
So we got another year.
I just noticed that they give a lot of warnings, but we're not, maybe we can, I don't know, that's another topic for discussion, but.
Yeah, the contract for the sheriff is a different discussion that dovetails into this for sure. But I think the first step is sort of disconnecting from the revenue component as a financial decision, which does allow for that discussion to naturally occur, because we'd need to inform the sheriff about that decision and get their thoughts.
But what do you need from the budget committee today regarding this?
Well,
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, TJ, but I think we're just kind of introducing them to this, but it will be more of a council action, correct? That as far as the court goes?
Correct. And so the council will be discussing this tonight. And if the council wants to make that determination this evening, you'll be in a public meeting and we'll have the authority to do so, but it will not be in the budget committee session. So we're done as far as budget committee goes. I wanted to make sure you all knew that these are the big pieces for you to have. These are currently in your packet. Dawn and I have some homework to do. Part of that is checking, excuse me, bug in my throat. Part of that is checking on prior year's formulas. Part of that is working on getting a digital version read-only available for the committee. And part of that also is getting an email out so that you have all in writing, just a reminder that we'll be meeting at 6 p.m. on Monday, the 1st, for our next budget committee meeting. Just as a reminder, you have an opportunity on that date to recommend the budget. I do suspect that we'll likely go 1 week further, just because of some of the material changes that we're making this year. Conceptually might require some discussion if you all feel that's necessary. We've baked in the additional day for that purpose. If there are no additional questions from the budget committee or requests of staff, I would recommend that we could move forward to convening the meeting for this evening with staff having our marching orders thus far.
No, any questions? All right, great. I have one. It's a quiz for Dawn real quick.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, I have to. On requirement summary for general fund 100, what's the difference between copier maintenance and service and copier maintenance / service?
Well, let me look. There's probably should be 2 separate lines. That's a very good question. Let me make sure it's a duplicate line.
I had that same question, and I honestly I wasn't gonna die on that hill, but it feels that we should simplify those unless there truly is. Don, we talked about this before. If I recall, they're very similar. One has to do with a contract.
Let me clarify. I think that one is the actual lease though. And then
Yeah,
one is
that's what I
the
thought.
copies itself, but we can definitely put them in the same line. That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, one was the contract. That's what I thought it was. Yep.
Get the lease, and then one's the actual copy cost, which is separate invoicing, so. I wanted to put it on there twice. That's
Need some levity at the end of the budget. If there's nothing else, I'll bring the May 26th, 2026 city budget committee to the close. Adjourned.
Good job, Don. Thanks, Don.
TJ, are we gonna stay on the meeting, or
Yep.
we're gonna leave this one and then restart?
We need a break.
We'll just-
Have a potty break, a bio break.
Let's pause it, Don, but let's just keep the
Yes,
video
there's
rolling.
chips
You
up there. Please go help me.
I'm not gonna touch anything.
just take like a 10-minute or something.
That'll leave.
That's the way it's all.
We don't get to see the transformation. I think it's.
No, you don't want to.
Well, just direct your- So. An 80 miles an hour.
I'm off video, yeah, I'm not in junction anywhere. Like,
You're like, oh, yeah, I said, and by the way, I didn't think about it.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Well, we don't have to go to the
Oh,
line.
no. Yeah. My brother was the
Nice
same.
meeting you. Thank you for joining us.
Show them.
I got some follow-up questions. Let's see. You're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not like money on.
Okay, so they charge.
Yeah.
First, but already well, I guess so, when I go there for it, I see three, no problem, not really. Your sense of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where.
Yeah.
I
I'm not even sure.
No,
it's great.
actually had to, pry it away from him, his version, because I did the original version, right?
My husband.
And then he had.
I have to go to Jay.
Well, when I was applying,
Yeah.
And I.
so it was my reality with I didn't like those pieces, but I didn't know what the reason is, it's because it's a budget document that, I mean, I guess.
It's like counselor list. I don't think it really, like, we don't want to see like every single transaction in the accounts. I think it's more about just, yeah, checking the formulas.
Yeah,
But
well,
also at the
especially
same
that's
time.
like last year.
Yeah, and like, when I look at this,
I've never seen it.
this is not
It's huge.
typical, like, or like a budget, necessarily used to.
Okay.
And that's fine. I get that this is like,
Cause I don't like having to check it all the time.
okay, when I look
I
at
need
this,
one that.
okay, previously adopted.
When I have a question.
My first question that I wrote down on the whole thing was, is this actual or is it budget?
Because I don't.
So that's
realize
the
it.
budget, so this is budget, and this is the actual, so the
Oh, okay.
first, the second proceeding and first proceeding are the actual. This one was what was budgeted, and this could have been the, so in some of these, this case, that's supplemental budget. Whether or not it could change that way. So, yeah, that's the actual budgeted amount though for that item.
For the buy-in?
Yeah.
But this.
Those are the actual.
this is actual
Yes.
premium. So.
Yes.
So, would we have the actual?
Oh, yeah.
current?
Yeah.
We will have that, so next year, which we won't have the actual for the Vanadium until June 30th, you broke back there. So,
But you would have like current here.
yeah, no, definitely, and so, and if that's something that you're wanting to see, I mean,
I mean, that's kind of the thought, I mean, these are great.
and you definitely can, so, and this, that's kind of a large piece, is the basic things.
That's they're quite,
That's what we're getting to a lot of these.
Yeah, okay, that's kind of what I'm just.
We're not putting a buffer, but then we're doing our, what we've expended so far this year to account for what this is going to be, and some things we've done. A certain percentage of American things.
Right, so like, you'll see my logic here, this is what it's complicated in some ways. I was like, okay, biennium, you spend $10,000, yeah, we're dropping.
I see what you're saying, yeah. And I think the reason for that is because of the distribution change.
I'm just bringing up points, people. I'm not telling you. I mean, that's, those are.
Yeah.
I'm doing it again.
But that isn't a bad.
So I would like.
And what I could do next time, and I did bring my laptop tonight, I wouldn't be able to appear on the screen necessarily, but I could email. Show kind of how we, our methodology.
TJ's gonna probably use about 5 minutes before we start again.
Yeah. And you know, something that Ray did last year, is he actually came out to say it all.
Yeah.
And he got just an overview of kind of what we're looking at. What are some actions like spring?
Yeah. City spring.
Yeah.
That's the number.
She doesn't use it.
And so I have somebody used that this month. It's interesting. Yeah. We're tracking.
I was in Salem for pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Describe it, and I was there, or
Yeah.
it was the organization I worked for, but very quick.
We can't do that actually, because we're amazed by
I figured it was something like that.
Yeah.
Springbrook.
Springbrook / bias, but it's very outdated, and they're actually just now getting a third server up and running, and so as the other ones are found.
Not user friendly.
No, gosh, no. I mean, I know it now, but it's not user friendly.
Yeah.
We put so many things that don't make sense as pathways and.
Got to make the printers cooperate every day.
Are you going back, Rob? So you're just going home?
Mayor Sheets does have like check them.
Okay.
And then too, so we'll check those. If you don't mind dropping, that's all, if it's late, don't know. So I'll get into free with you tomorrow morning, obviously make sure it's locked up. Okay. All right, if there's anything else, just let me know, and that would be, we can figure out a way to, just kind of show up, like, we just spring is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Just, that looks, I
I think we're looking for.
because we have like the budget, the year-to-date total remaining, and when we go in there.
Yeah, like understanding like the biennium actuals and
Yeah.
how they fit to the proposed budget. is
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
Clear enough.
Yeah,
Because some of these are,
and those are the
So we're
budget
just-
amounts, like we, you know,
Right.
so it's
Like-
not the actual.
right, exactly. And so it's kind of like, okay, we budgeted 21,000 for 2 years and we're now gonna budget level that makes sense.
Yeah, and then some of them are way.
Some of them are like, why is it so different, you know? even
I'm not
if it's
saying, a lot of the personnel, because of the distribution that TJ had kind of, worked on and looked at, you know, what we're actually spending our time.
Yeah, like this janitorial services. I mean.
We're done.
Yeah. And our supplies, we're not.
Some of this stuff, like you stockpile.
Hey, the checks are signed. I don't know if anybody wants to take them. Take them. Or-
Stick around. I'll stick around.
I think it's Phoenix.
No, but anything like that you're wanting, don't be afraid to ask for an email and a quick screenshot. And if it's something I could just send to you, just send to you. Something we
There's
just
just
make sure that everybody.
Yes, yeah. 1995.
Nice.
Send me the.
Right?
Love the two. All right, I'm gonna, you guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, and Dawn.
Oh, he's gonna say, at least not here. So, I started thinking back on the sore throat. It's just an allergy.
Oh,
I
and
just wanna
since
take a
you're
break.
budget committee chair.
I'll build that too.
So maybe you won't need that, because I'm not gonna care.
If you don't mind, just picking your, pop back out, I did both of these sides, okay?
We shall see.
Okay, like, you just turn it.
No rushing.
Pop back out.
Well, we have following it now, one of us. The fastest budget committee we've had was 2 meetings and that's it.
Yeah.
But we've got one meeting for 5 years.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
William Brain.
Yeah, I was on the council for what, 10 or 11 years and that was off for 5 years. Now I was stuck again. Yeah.
Stuck again. Sucked in
But I've been on
again.
the budget committee. Been on 25 years.
Yeah.
Although it's a couple times I was in the budget.
Yeah.
But it was important.
Right. Are we still on recording?
I have my read on seriously.
Yes, sir, technically we are, but we'll be
Okay.
cutting the,
You read my
there we
mind.
are.
Um,
Hold on.
Counselor Cuthbertson ran home. She's gonna do the council meeting from home via Zoom. So I'm just waiting for her to pop on here and then we'll get started.
Oh, great. And to clarify, we have one big recording, but we're gonna snip it for the budget and the council meeting, and so you'll just have the formal beginning and end on the recording itself.
Well, and I purposely, put my bid on what the date and all that is, what the meeting is, so it makes it easier. Yep, that's great. So just a few more minutes. Sorry for the delay, folks.
Yes, sir, no worries.
To come back.
Yeah, that's what I meant to do.
Let's just go to another. There's stuff like that.
But man, she's good.
Never mind. In this packet, it just jumps page to page 3 of 5. Is there a page one?
Try a different one.
Mine goes 3 5 too. Yes, 3 5.
We're missing part of the TJ's report.
It goes 1 and then it goes 3. And then the agenda is printed for is missing a page. So
Uh-oh. Yeah, we're missing part of the agenda too.
well, I wonder because I thought there was 2 of them. I got an agenda right here.
That has it up your sleeve.
Yeah, it had, they were set, there were two files, one was full agenda,
Right.
and this one was the Rich.
That person's.
I was wondering why I got 2 of these.
Let me see if the packet is the full packet.
Well, yeah, page 4 is mine.
Right.
Yeah. 5 to 6 too.
Yeah, it goes 5 and 7.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it just got,
It just.
labeled wrong, or we actually are removing the pages.
Okay, so that's good.
I think you're good on it, on the label one, because if you look at the transaction journal on page 11, the last one is a 1459 transaction, and the next transaction on the next page is 1486. Oh, wait a minute, yeah, so that would.
So all of them are doing that,
Yeah, so it's,
15, 17.
so we're missing between 60 and 80 transaction. Yeah, we go from
Yeah. Oh, I.
15, 13, 15, 38.
It's not, it's corporate control.
Only the one page.
That's what it looks like, yep.
It's still.
That is not good.
So we have our agendas are And from David?
Pages.
All the pages.
We're kind of on.
No, it's
So
okay.
if you have access online.
It's true on my behalf though, I am, but. I'll be on.
If you go, so if you go online to the city website,
Okay.
you pull the agenda down from there. If you so desire, if you don't, that's fine.
Oh, which-
Yeah, so I'm looking at the one online.
Okay, so we're gonna remember.
Does it have it all the pages online?
Yes, yes, everything. is-
Yeah, see how there's a second page of the agenda, which we don't have.
Amy, I'm on that now. I have the screen up. What are you pointing to?
So what it looks like happened is when we printed out the packets, we messed up and basically printed only the odd pages. So
Oh, no.
we're, yeah,
Well, I mean, I can access the agenda from the website. It's not-
Yeah, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
we're just looking at the agenda on the website and the whole packet is there. And we can
Yep.
see all the pages.
I got you. So it's your printed packets only that have that.
They're
that right?
missing, they're missing every other page, yeah.
All right. So for the record, we will reprint you packets in case any of you want to hold on to them for future reference. As far as tonight, I will be sure that I keep my screen sharing.
Okay,
Okay,
awesome,
sounds good.
thank you. Okay, is Councilor Cuthbertson joined us yet?
Not yet. We can give her just another minute if you'd like, sir.
Okay, let's give her another minute and then we'll get started.
Yes, sir. Your call.
I just want to know that I must be special because my packet's complete. I'm just saying,
More complexity.
I don't know whose packet I got.
Just saying. Mine, no, I'm kidding. You
Well,
can
we're-
have
It's
it.
got the right original one.
We were on the table.
I must
Yeah,
say,
it was the same.
if I didn't have a migraine all day and right now, I would have had Ron go to City Hall and pick up the packet. And I would have noticed they were odd numbered.
It's okay. We have it under control.
Didn't get the packet earlier today, which was, and I still don't have access to my email, so.
We'll work on it.
Oh, yeah. that's actually the one. That's the one.
Or anything from you for the new password. Okay, can you hear me?
I'm sorry there. What was that question for me?
I still don't have access to my emails. I never received an email to my personal email from you or a text message. I'm supposed to reset my password.
For your city account.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm gonna go to check really quick and see where I'm sending that to, because it's going to your personal account. Let me just double check that, counselor.
Please don't say it if we're being recorded right now. And there's people online and different audience.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't need my personal account everywhere.
No, I wouldn't say it or like share my screen or anything like that.
You can text it to Mayor Sheets and verify it from there.
No, I was checking my emails actually just to see where I had sent this to previously and why it might not be getting to you.
TJ, I think my email is also still not set up or not operating.
Is that Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yes, the counselor by this.
My email account, however, works.
So did mine.
Long time, so yeah. We know your page. Counselor, is it Felty? Yes, I wish we just give us some time. if we get it.
Amy, can you hear me okay?
Respond to my email.
Yes, I can.
Oh,
Okay. Really quick request. Can you make a note for tomorrow? I'd like to submit a ticket to one individually for each counselor to our IT staff to see if there's some support they can provide, especially if they're getting some issues. If I recall, Jeremy, you may have sent me an email several weeks ago and you were getting some odd issues. Am I recalling that correctly?
Yeah, you gave me the like temporary password.
Right.
And then I typed it in and it said incorrect. Then I tried to reset password and then it was like, I don't know where to send a password. So.
Got it.
Is it just, Cindy and Jeremy, you both for sure need help? Anybody else having issues?
No.
I have issues, but they're not email related.
Well,
Mind you,
we all have issues.
I believe Councilor Cuthbertson, unless she recently got hers fixed, she. hasn't been in-
I think she mentioned she might have a.
It might be.
I think we fixed that one. I swear. That one, I think we're good, but I will double check. She'll be on in a moment to let us know. Oh, I think she's on right now, actually.
Okay. Give me a second here, I'm trying to find something.
Is there anyone that wants the full packet printed out for them, for sure?
I'm old school. I've got them all over. Baker's option.
What would be the best way to let you know when it's ready for pickup? Call you or
Either
email?
call me or send it to the personal email for you guys if they need.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
so how do we feel about starting a city council meeting now? We feel good about it? Yeah.
Councilor Cuthbertson on there.
Yes, I believe she is. Okay.
Yes,
All right, great. All right, bringing our city council meeting to order for this May 26, 2026. We're gonna do the pledge of allegiance again. Let's go for it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At least on the screen.
Let's do roll call. Councilor Ray. Here. Councilor Williams.
Here.
Councilor Evans.
Here.
Councilor Cuthbertson.
here,
Councilor Myers.
Here,
Councilor Felker.
here.
And I'm here as well. We're all here. How about that? Okay. Public comment. I have two people in the audience. Any public comments to share with us? You'd be super excited if you have one. Okay, we don't have any public comment. I tried. We're gonna move on to staff reports and updates, and I believe TJ, the city administrator's report is up first.
Yes, sir. I'll just go ahead and move to that really quickly here. So we're focused, as I know in here, and I'll summarize for you. Really focused on budget right now. That's been pretty much the primary area, in addition to, really in addition to planning projects that are of critical importance. We developed a budget calendar, review of structures, line item organization, all the things that you all saw us talk about in depth tonight. As part of that budget process, we also evaluated and reorganized the city staffing structure. We have that on the agenda this evening, including things like roles and responsibilities, FTE, payroll, and looking at administrative redundancy and trying to streamline things. We're also streamlining and emphasizing our staff strength, so I'm excited to talk a little more about that. We'll also have a recommendation from the Personnel Committee, who had the opportunity to review this presentation first just last week. A lot of effort was on staff workloads, internal task distribution, really prioritizing our operations. We're trying to track more of our departmental responsibilities and also timelines and deadlines. So this is all part of our ongoing efforts, like we were discussing tonight, and which is part of our budget, how we're restructuring staff. Water system planning and infrastructure. So we're actually doing a lot of work right now, getting the RFP finalized and completed for the engineers' work on the water intake, as well as the infrastructure upgrades on the water system plant. We're coordinating, of course, we have an 11:35 item on the agenda tonight. That's part of pulling in consultants, making sure we're aligning with our state and federal agencies, as well as our public works staff and contractors, and our funding partners, making sure that our project scope is aligned, we're sequenced, and quite honestly, the staff reorganization is going to allow me to squarely focus on this in particular. And then we also extended a conditional offer of employment to our new utility worker one person. His name's Jacob. Really great staff member who's really hit the ground running. I'm excited to see all the different things he's really interested in doing and seems to be very enthusiastic about the position. So he's going to be an excellent addition to the team, and he came on right before Mark took off to his vacation that was planned for some time. So I'm really excited we're going to have some support in the water treatment plant and out there in the field for George and for our folks from Harrisburg. On the 11:35 coordination project, we're continuing to coordinate with our partners. First and foremost of those is the Long Tom Watershed Council, of course, the Army Corps of Engineers, and then our property owners adjacent to the project and who are affected by the project continue to be on our list of folks to keep in touch with, both via email and over the phone. And also public works and city staff are kept in the loop, which is something that I know Mark really appreciates, and it's very helpful for me to have him at the table. He's got a lot of institutional knowledge and on the ground knowledge that is just really invaluable in this process. A lot of this is on project coordination, technical materials, and communication at the moment. My focus on planning and land use really has been on prioritizing projects that have statutory deadlines, that it is the state requires me to have a decision or a step completed, and a time clock is ticking. There are a number of projects that have been on my desk that I will say were sort of resurrected from prior years, and I've been phasing those in as best I could during the budget process. I'm happy to say that those are now completed, but it took a while to get there. I had to prioritize budget and then, of course, planning projects with statutory deadlines. So that is my city administrator report.
If you have any questions for TJ on his DA report? Thank you for all the time and energy towards the budget. We do appreciate it. I know that's been a lot of work.
It has. Thank you, sir. And, you know, frankly, juggling all of the other pieces, it's been a long several weeks, and I would venture to say, if Dawn were still here, she would say she feels that too. Here's her report. So she's been focusing heavily on budget prep alongside the work that I'm doing with her. She's been pulling in numbers, making estimates, filling in the blanks on a lot of our working sheets to make sure that our numbers are absolutely correct. And that includes everything from Mark's wish list to costs that we have been able to predict over time and have been able to assign escalation values to. So I'll give you just a brief example. Oh, she didn't write that in here. Actually, she did. In one piece here. A lot of our items, we included a 3% increase because that is, you know, a typical, we hope for a 3% inflation. Right now, we know that inflation is significantly higher than that, especially across most goods in the economy. We included a modest 3% on some items. Other items, such as, like she points out, electricity, we actually included by 30% because geopolitical risks due to petro, gas, and hydrocarbons, and then in addition to that, hydroelectric itself may be increasing. So we want to just make sure that we have the money in the account, and if we don't use it, it just gets returned to the general fund next year. But what's nice is that we're not going to get caught in a situation where we have to then fund these buckets later on by not thinking about it. And then also the next step is as soon as we're done with the budget, we get to move on to audit, which is going to be, and Don's doing right now, is working diligently in the background to make sure that all the paperwork that we've been signing and producing and filing away over this past year is in an organized format and ready to hand over to the auditors, hopefully reducing the amount of time that they have to spend on the audit work themselves. As we know, we'll be spending about $35,000 this coming year on this exact audit that Don is preparing. Part of that is to button up the second half of a biennium. Part of that is to get into compliance with some of the audit findings. But I'm really happy to say that a lot of the stuff we've done over this past year has brought us in line. The ship is righted, and I very much expect these costs to go down a lot next year. Any questions on the finance report?
It's a busy time of year. Jump from budget to audit. Hopefully Don gets to breathe in between.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Mark's is next. Mark has been working diligently as well. One thing, when did he produce this? Well, actually, it might actually be in here. Let's see. No. So I had the pleasure to let you all know that I handed Mark the lead role for submitting our TMDL, our total maximum daily load report. We were 2 years behind when I stepped in. I took care of that first one independently and then showed Mark what we did and how we did it. And then guided him through the education and training and things he would need to know how to complete that himself. He then established a relationship with our basin coordinator. We had an online meeting, and then Mark worked independently on the vast majority of that TMDL report and got it over the finish line. He submitted it independently to the agency, working with Chuck and staff and everybody in between to make sure it was done correctly. So I commended him via email. I included the mayor in that email as well because I wanted folks to know that we're back in the good graces of DEQ with that piece.
Thank goodness.
Good job.
It's huge. I was very happy. I was just beaming. We got that notice today, actually.
Yeah, I replied, but I know he's on vacation, so he'll see it when he gets back.
Yep. Mark mentions in his report, brought on Jacob Husk. He started on the 21st, hit the ground running, and he says, and he means it, he's very excited to have him on board. George is still with us. Ron's doing well at the park, as he says. At the water system, we met with the circuit rider. Council may remember I updated you last month that we get 20 free hours paid for by the state from an expert that comes down and supports us on the things that need to be tweaked or adjusted within our water system. Jan Vage came down. He's with a company called Verdantis, which is paid these said 20 hours. He worked with Mark, went through the entire plant, found a whole bunch of things that he thought could be helpful to at least look at. There was an issue with a pump freezing, and Mark fixed that immediately upon finding it and also documented it via email, included Chuck and myself, just in case they come back and ask any questions. It should have been operating, just we don't know how long it wasn't. And then also professional development. This is a big one, y'all. Mark's water distribution certificate was issued by the state, and the application for water treatment is currently pending. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they may have already approved it. I'll need to double check. I think that's what I understand.
Yeah, I think they actually have approved it, yes.
Yeah, it was pretty, that's right. It was pretty quick.
Yeah, it took about a month or so.
Wow, so we have, he's a fully certified,
Water operator.
oh my goodness, but that's great.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mark.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what's not, and what Mark also pointed out, and this is something to keep in mind, we'll still have to keep Chuck around because we have a level 2 plant and Mark has a level 1 certification. So he'll need to get that level 2 certification,
Yeah, we
but
have-
he'll be able to do that. He'll do that this year.
We're halfway done.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
right momentum. I'm very happy.
Yes. Absolutely.
He's excited and his goal this year is to get that level 2 cert.
Awesome.
He's also getting some continuing education credits from Sacramento State University from time in the military, which is cool. Continuing education units and then credits that go towards that from his military service. So working towards that next certification. On the maintenance side, wastewater, he talked about a broken wastewater line from the park restrooms. Again, so that was repaired again. It's something that we continue to budget for. It just continues to happen. Facility maintenance, that same stump that we have had some issues with staff. I think George hit it. Had somebody else hit the stump at the park with their car. So we did get a quote to have it ground down. One of the things I'd like council guidance on is, do you want to go ahead and grind it down? My guidance is yes, we should go ahead and do it. We'll talk about that as well. And then there was also increased use in consumables at the park due to baseball activities. Ron reported that. I think that's just a normal part of people using our park. We'll do our best to put up signs and encourage good behavior. We'll try our best on that. Any questions on any of the staff reports before we go into the patrol report briefly?
Yeah, we discussed some of the equipment findings on that new Kubota line that happened there. The new Kubota was laid on its side.
Yeah. So thanks for asking. So there was an incident about a week or two ago now, where George was driving the tractor and it laid over on its side due to an angle he was on. It was a gentle fall in place rather than a crash and burn. Nevertheless, it didn't start back up. And so we got one quote for what could potentially be the issue and how to fix it. And just being good fiscal stewards, we went ahead and got another quote for what could be the issue. That second quote was interesting because it offered the opportunity for us to spend just a little bit of money to diagnose the issue so that we could kind of peer in and understand if it's a big thing or a little thing. Is it insurance thing that we need to file now, or is it something that we can just consider an operational cost? So that's what we're in the middle of waiting for right now, is the answer on that. So we've gone ahead and spent just a little bit of money on diagnostics.
So you said you got, what, we know roughly what you're thinking for money?
Well, the tractor is there at the shop, and it was $1,500 for the diagnostics, correct?
Correct.
So I don't know if they've actually completed the diagnostics. They've had it since they got towed in.
Friday.
But did they give you a quote what they thought it would cost to fix it?
Yeah. So the first place gave us a quote for what they made an assumption on what it might be, and they said, it could go as high as $20,000 if it's worst case scenario. We weren't really ready to authorize that because it could also be nothing. Not nothing, but something that is less dire or severe. So when Mark made a call to another shop that was able to diagnose it, they said, let's take a look for $1,500. If it's simple enough, it might just be some oil, got into the cylinders or something's just got it off timing. We can go ahead and just fix that pretty easily while we got it open. So here's the deal. Mark updated me today on this. he said that they took it apart, they took a look at it. Differences are within the range that they expect for something to turn over. They cleaned it out. They made it look good. They put it back together. So the $1,500 includes putting it back together. For those of you who are mechanically inclined, that includes things like bolts and gaskets. And so that is now there, ready to go. I think that they're going to go ahead and wait and then try to turn it over and see if it turns on. And they've also documented along the way what they found. So we are crossing our fingers and hoping it's ready to go because, y'all, it's not just the money, because the insurance is there for these kinds of things. It's more about the time. I don't know if it's a severe issue and I have a tractor out of commission for a month during the season where we need to be mowing heavily and doing this kind of work. That's my concern.
Thank you for the update, TJ.
Yes, ma'am.
Question. You sent a lot of email about the lawn mower that was broke.
It was
It was the tractor that went out inside. What about the zero turn mower? Can they not use that on the wetland?
Yeah, they were out there. So this has to do with the Red Hills little park walkway thing. I saw Mark at the Monroe Festival and he asked me to post that because they were supposed to have been out there, I think, around that time frame. Yeah, I just know that there's some concern in Red Hills about the grass. They were out just a few days ago, kind of mowing right along the path, but not going into the wetland portion, which is still quite
Yep.
dry.
Is there a reason?
Yes, that's correct. Is that something you'd like a little more information on?
No, we're just wondering, can they use like the Bad Boy Zero on it, or does the Kubota have to be the one that we use in that particular area?
It will depend on the height.
The wetlands, probably too rough for that.
Yeah.
So.
It is very-
Ways to get paid to mow fields, per se, at certain heights, that's what you're going for.
I know my
I'll
neighbor
put-
asked me, but that's all, that's just.
Yeah, there's been quite a few people ask me this.
And that's specifically about that that
The
field
one-
area, is that?
The park there.
Yep.
You know,
Okay,
council
got it.
work session, leaders.
My backyard, I look right out at it.
There's poison oak, no.
Yeah, we do.
So I know that there's pesticides that they spray over there, and there was a complaint about that over in that area. And
That
is
was me, I just wanted to know what they were spraying. Like I said, I looked right out there, I said.
oh, got it. Okay.
We just wanted, the
I
water
just
manager
told
wanted
them
to
after
when
the
it's gonna be mowed.
Not
Are you
like-
getting HOA chairman?
So that's a great
Got it.
question. I can find out.
Oh no, Councilor Williams, I'm looking on our project tracking, and you're actually the only the second. There's actually another person who asked the same question just today.
Thank goodness, okay. But I did not complain, I just want that noted.
No, ma'am, you're asking a valid question. Like, what is that? What is going on? I don't blame you. So, any other questions for the reports from staff before I go on to sheriff's report?
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay. As you know, we're going to invite the sheriff back to see us again in, I think, July, after we're done with our marathon meetings. But they do provide this report for us. I want to encourage you all to keep doing exactly what you're doing. I think it's been, I want to commend council for a really detailed and thorough job in particular in looking at this report, trying to understand what they're doing out there and what they're finding and what they're looking for. And also this all kind of speaks directly as well to our discussion about the court and what we're bringing in and where these things are happening. And all those discussions are really great to continue to have. As you know, they just list date and time, the call, the deputy, and whether there were traffic or arrests. One of the things I've seen is that they have a lot of warnings and citations. If I'm not mistaken, there was one traffic citation. Then another there. not a lot of traffic. There was 2 traffic citations, and boy, I think we had, if I'm not mistaken, is that an arrest right there? Yeah, we had somebody in custody.
Oh, that was the
Oh.
felon in possession. Was arrested.
Oh, is that right?
And then there was 2 arrests.
Warren arrested.
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. And then-
Oh yeah, there was a couple. Wow, there was an active week for Holden folks. I missed those 2 above that.
You can have a question about previous report. I had asked, like when they were at the substation on their computer or going through reports and whatnot, that was, excuse me, right now, if that was on our city contracted amount or if that was just unrelated time from the city's time. And I never got an answer back, or we never got an answer back. I asked several different meetings.
Mhm. You are absolutely correct. One of the things that they're telling us here is this number here. So as you all know, we get 10 hours a week as part of our contract with the sheriff's department. So they provide 10 hours a week of active patrol. And if the council would like, as even if it's part of this budget process, we can actually spend some time in another meeting looking at the specific contracts. So you better understand what those 10 hours contractually cover. But what they're saying here is in these 4 or so weeks, they've spent 46 hours, demonstrating that perhaps it would indicate that they've maybe spent a little more time than they might contractually be required to. But looking at these times up here, they're very specific in terms of how long they spent with these individuals. This is total time. It goes down to the second. So I'd be curious to know how they arrive at that. I'm sure that they have an answer.
I'd like to better understand how that contract is set up, how they're allocating their time.
Like no activity. Maybe that's in there. Maybe so. I don't mean to cut you off, Councilor Williams. Go right ahead.
No, just kind of, I'd be interested in further exploring that.
Well, and because technically they have to cover us anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, I think the contract is intended to have dedicated time, but I don't know. It's like catch 22. At one time, we had a lot of citizens asking for it because we had a lot of crime. You know, is the deterrent working because they're not making stuff, but the deterrent factor is working? We don't know. So there's a lot of intangibles there. And I agree with you. We need to look at it again and we need to qualify exactly what we're getting for it. And what extra are we getting besides the taxes we're already paying for that service?
Yeah, I agree. I would be interested in having them run like some data points to see like out of the stops, how many stops are just citations, are like, I know, there's never very many. But I would like to extrapolate that so that if we do look at the court costs, that could be a consideration, right? Like if we really hold their feet to the fire and say, if you're gonna pull people over, let's cite them.
So what I could do, Council, just this is coming to mind as you speak, is we're actually at a clean midpoint of their contract pretty much, and we're also looking at a major change in our structure with the court. And both of those warrant reaching out to the sheriff's office and saying, hey, we've got some questions based on those 2, normal procedural revisits of the contract. Just looking at it, could you give us a presentation? I could have a little staff meeting with them, which during that time I can just tell them what they might want to gear their presentation towards based on a work session. Perhaps we can structure that during a work session to get more into detail and what it is you would like to see. And then I can have that meeting. with the sheriff and Deputy Savage perhaps and say, hey, you available? Just so council can better understand what it means if they make this change with court and what it means this midway point through the contract when they start looking at the next one in the future.
That sounds great, perfect, thank you, TJ.
Sure. So,
So
Please
we're still on the sheriff's report, correct?
we are, and so I was just gonna say, we'll include this. Amy, would you please note to include that as an agenda item for our work session on the 8th, I think it would be.
Yes, I will.
Just perfect as a budget related topic. Okay. So the other thing is we have the remainder of well, that was actually the end of staff reports. Following is consent agenda. Any following questions before we move forward on the sheriff's report?
I think we're good.
Regarding the consent agenda, it concerns me a little bit, and no worries here in particular, but it concerns me a little bit that counselors don't have access to each page of the transaction journal. Am I correct on that? Most of you, if you're looking on it on paper?
Paper for some of us, but, you know, Counselor Myers and I are coming up.
Yeah.
Okay, we can continue. I'll leave it up to y'all. If you wanted to tuck this into next month so you have it on paper, we can do that. We can also, I can just scroll through this and let you get a view of it and approve from there too. How do you guys want to proceed?
I personally would rather do it on paper. I've got a migraine and looking at it on the phone is not helping. Did you hear me?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I think I heard you. You would favor what? I didn't hear specifically what you were saying.
I would personally rather wait till next meeting because I have a migraine and looking at it on the phone is not helping. It's very small print.
So,
That's just one out of 6 people. 7 people.
well, I don't think Counselor Cuthbert's in it. I don't think she has access to it either. I mean, that's good.
She had a migraine.
Yes, she is too. We can delay if it's not too much trouble.
No, it's fairly straightforward. But I think it makes sense because I even though this is all mundane and same stuff we look at every month, I want you to have a complete record and the ability to ask questions.
Are you okay with
Okay.
the next time around? Yeah. Looks like, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's delay so we all have a paper copy to look at next time.
The same goes with the minutes because you only have, well, that's
Right.
even more challenging.
Yes, unfortunately.
The entire consent agenda we will bring back forward to you.
Okay, sounds good. What are you gonna say, Counselor?
I just gonna go step back a second on the tractor that got sent to the,
Oh, yes.
wherever it was sent to. How come we didn't send it back to where it was bought from?
That was our first quote.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Now you know.
Yep.
Okay.
And not too surprising, Brian, if you think about it, it's not too surprising being the dealer. They're just gonna think what's the worst case scenario. What we looked for is who could warranty the work and still look at it maybe from a different angle.
I'm just having a tough time with that, what we're trying to say about it. It was not a tech, it was 15 years. It's like,
Oh, yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah, it looks like this. They think it might just turn over, and we're crossing our fingers and praying that it does. And if that's the case, awesome.
It's needed right now, it's not
Desperately.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna pass over consent agenda, which includes the minutes as well as the bills. And are we ready to go ahead and move forward in the agenda, the discussion on contracted landscape services at the library?
Yes, absolutely. A quick update. I did have a discussion today with Roger Irving. And, one of the things they're asking for, we talked about this in personnel committee, is up to 2 hours of staff time for mowing, weed whacking, leaf blowing. At first, the library was saying, hey, could you do this at cost? And I did talk to Roger about that today. And my what I wanted to say was it's very difficult for me to calculate what cost actually means. But what I can do is calculate fair market value. I don't want to be, competing with the most expensive snazzy landscaping company in the region, but I also think that we can find a fair market value and provide those services, providing that Mark believes that he has the staff capacity to do so. And he does. He does believe he has the capacity to do so. The point Roger and I agreed on is when people come driving through Monroe, they don't separate in their brains, that's the library. They're a different entity. They think of the full city. And so it behooves us to be supportive in that regard if we are receiving funding for that. But there's also fuel and equipment considerations, and we need to know how much time. It doesn't come down to, it really comes down to how much time we're going to spend per month. So I told Mark, on a trial basis, they need help right now. It turns out their contractor landscape guy actually just stopped showing up. And so the only reason it got cut is because Mark did it before the festival. But otherwise, it's going to keep growing, and they've got nobody coming back. So I told them, listen, we're not your replacement guy. Not yet. But what we can do is get a handle on how much time it's actually going to take. So I'll have Mark go over and do a cut in a couple of weeks from now, and maybe one more time in a couple of weeks after that. And that'll give us a good sense of how much time we actually spent on that. We'll use that as our estimate for the fair market value. And that's only if council believes that this is something that we should do. If you don't, then they cut a couple of free cuts, and we have no agreement to move forward on anything specific yet.
I think when this all originally started coming down, I think we did mention that we would consider contracting to them to help them with the landscaping when we did that switch.
We did, but I think we also made it clear that
They're gonna pay for it.
they're gonna pay for it, and it's really their burden to shutter, right? Like, it really and truly is.
Yeah,
When that contract, when we went our separate ways, that was clearly communicated, at least in my opinion.
yeah, I think we did 1 year of service anyway, that you know.
Right.
One question I had, didn't they have somebody doing the flowers and stuff?
They used to, I don't.
They have a volunteer that goes over and weeds and does some general kind of lawn yard kind of stuff, but she doesn't mow.
So essentially, it's just gonna be the mowing?
So it sounds like.
A question, why have they, if theirs has not
Yeah,
shown
never.
up, why have they not gone out and found a new person?
Or why don't they put for their volunteer pool? That was also what they were gonna do, right? Like, they were gonna really rely on their own resources and their own community to help. And this is a problem that happens every single year. That needs to be mowed, it needs to be addressed, and I just think falling back on the city to do that is not appropriate, honestly, in my opinion.
Well, what do we charge when we mow somebody else's property?
Oh, good question.
Exactly.
How much is that per hour?
Yeah, if we charge
Charts and things.
some lot owner so much per hour, I can't see how we would get away from not charging the same rate to the library.
Precisely. We want to charge them market rate. And I spoke with Roger and I said, listen, the only way this discussion goes forward is if we're no longer talking about at cost, because we can't do that, but we can do a fair market rate. And if reliability is your issue, I know that if council did, decide to go forward with this, that Mark would show up. But it really comes down to whether or not this is something the city can do right now, and I'll have to get council's guidance.
Well, it sounds like there's more than just mowing, you got weed whacking and leaf blowing, right?
Yeah.
Right,
and what
so-
If equipment breaks down and we can't fulfill the obligation, what does that recourse look like?
I completely agree.
Time, like, busy already.
So we're looking at this tonight as a separate council agenda item in a few minutes here, a presentation about staffing. But we have an additional person on the team. Mark now has two additional or two folks in addition to Ron, so 3 total, 4 if you include himself for the whole team. So that means that Ron has support from George to do a lot more outdoor work. It's possible that they have the capacity, but if they don't, I told Mark that's my number one concern is meeting our obligations first and foremost. And if there's time and we can fit that in, that's what council will need to know.
I'm good with that. I'm good at market value, and if
That's where
we
I'm at.
have the resources and the time to be able to do so, we can definitely accommodate, but I would really be hesitant to put it that it's gonna be contractually obligated for us to do that. Unless you
No.
think that would behoove us as a cover.
It's up to y'all.
That thing burned me. I mean, scarred me.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, oh, yes.
Might be
I
one.
understand. No, I
Here's
don't
what
have
I'm
an
looking
issue
for.
with if it's fair market value and we have the resources. It seems like we have the resources right now at this moment in time. So I personally think it would be fine.
So we've got 2.25 FTE of public works.
Mhm.
I just really have a hard time with him indicating that optics of the city, the library is not. When people drive through, I don't know, I don't like that.
Roger's
I
very,
agree, but
Roger's very good at negotiation and politics.
I'll be fair, you guys. You know that was something that he was asking if there's any reason the city could support that, and so I said I could see that being a benefit because that was my point to make that people driving through wouldn't see a difference. So perhaps that's something for us to think about more. But I told him I definitely couldn't do it for free or for cost.
Well, we're already mowing that piece of land just north of the library, right?
Right.
Yes, that's right. And he says that's why I thought of you. That's what he said on that
Yeah,
piece.
so I would presume that we would plan it to where it wouldn't be 2 separate shares, right? So as long as we can do it where it's economical for us, I guess. And liability wise, what are we talking about? Who's gonna have the liability? I mean, I had somebody throw a rock into my yard that I didn't see. Let's just say it happens over at the library and throws a rock into a car. Who's gonna pay for that?
If we move forward, we could do a standard service contract. They are a nonprofit organization and they're also affiliated with the library. So, just a simple MOU on how we proceed. We'll have the attorney look it over if we decide to move forward. But what I'm looking for from council right now is, do you want to continue down this road where we look at what the costs might be and ask Mark to maybe firm up his numbers and his time a little bit more? Or is this something you'd like to explore a little bit more?
I think it's worth exploration. I wouldn't make any commitments at this point.
Good. Okay.
What do you guys think?
I mean, if Mark has indicated that we have the resources and bandwidth and the equipment to be able to do it, I mean,
I still want to have a liability question.
I do, and I want the legal lawyers to look over an MOU or whatever contract we go
The
with.
IGA or an
Yeah.
MOU.
Sounds like we're doing some exploration.
Okay. Thank you, council. The last piece of tonight's budget discussions that carry into council are going to be on position descriptions. I'll kind of cover these in the agenda on a high level real quick. I got a presentation on that. Budget considerations, and then our 1135 committee appointees. I know that we likely have at least one person in the room at the moment who's interested in talking about the 11:35 committee appointment. I'd like to recommend that we entertain moving that forward, if you'd all like, before I go into maybe another 15-minute presentation. It's up to y'all.
Go for it.
All right. So 11:35 committee, the key thing here, as we were talking about before, we need some folks that can help us recommend the engineer that we'll select to do, for example, the water intake. And there are also going to be some procedural steps along the way that council will have to make as the non-federal sponsor for the dam project. And the goal here is to be sure that there have been discussions before those decisions get their way to council. And so what we've intentionally done is thought about who should be on this committee and why. So I'm really pleased to let you all know that I was able to connect with Roger Irving from the library. He is a civil engineer with a career behind him in civil engineering, and he definitely speaks very fluently this language and has a vested interest in seeing this come forward, especially in selecting an engineer for the project specifically. He's going to be very valuable on that committee. So I'm presenting his name this evening as an individual to sit on the committee. Also, you have in the audience, I believe there at the moment, Jed Call from Long Tom Watershed Council. Jed has been there. Every time I think of a year in my mind, it's actually an earlier year that Jed's been working on this. I think it's like 2015. Am I right on that, Jed? I don't know if you can hear me, but
Yeah, he said approximately.
yeah, working on this project to see it come to fruition. He'll be sitting on that committee as well, both from a technical expert perspective, as well as having that background knowledge. The engineer of record would also be appointed to that committee, so that if there are in particular key engineering decisions, that they are there to select somebody that'll complete the water intake or the infrastructure work, or be able to comment on the work as it's produced and brought forward to council for successive steps after they come on board. So this committee is very much a technical committee because we're at a technical stage in the project. And we need somebody that can keep up with what the engineers are saying and also think about things like, what about the banks and what's going to be growing on them, and what about water rights, and what about citizens and wells, and all those things that y'all have been asking about. This is the committee that's going to get down into the weeds on that, meet monthly, and provide a monthly report as a part of your council packets moving forward. So I'm really excited about this. I know we've talked about this a lot before. Right now, those are the committee members that I'd like to recommend for appointments. And please know that there are a few others that we're working on right now that I'll likely bring forward for next month's meeting.
So there's two,
Two right now.
and the other ones that you're investigating or looking into, what are their backgrounds? Because I'm concerned we don't have, it's very technical. Which I know.
So what?
But I mean, there are other technical aspects that we need, such as, I don't know, you said like the plants that are gonna grow on the banks. We have a naturalist or somebody.
So that's one of the things that we're working on right now, is bringing on somebody with a landscape architecture or landscape background, or at the very least, a background in working with the Forest Service and U.S. government in these types of issues. So yes, on the design elements. I'd also like to, and Councilor Williams, don't worry, I'm not going to put you on the spot for this one. But what I'd love to see is a city councilor on this committee. And that's the main reason that I wanted to make sure I saved that for last. We need a counselor who's able to help explain to their counterparts when decisions come forward what we discussed during committee, and translate it in a way that other counselors are going to appreciate. You all know each other better than most other folks when it comes to city business.
DJ, I have a question. This is Jerry.
Yes.
as opposed to like the Parks and Beautification Committee, is this committee entirely comprised of members within the city limits, or is it wider? It seemed, I'm not clear on the other.
It's wider.
It's wider. Okay, great. Thank you. Never mind.
Good.
Yeah.
That would be my concern as well, as that all those people on the committee are from outside.
I think we
Okay.
have people inside the city limits on the community.
Oh, absolutely. Well, city councilor would help with that.
Yeah.
We could have two
I
city
think more
council.
than one person.
Yeah, yes.
Although, you know, it is a federal project, so I understand what the other people have done.
Right.
And,
think
yeah.
a couple of people from the city would be going.
Definitely. TJ, could we have two city councilors? I'll let you-
Yes, you absolutely can. So on any given committee, y'all can have up to 50, so you don't exceed the 50% limit. So you can have technically 2, possibly 3 counselors, depending on how you look at it. I'd say 2 is safe.
I'm very interested in being on that committee. That's Councilor Williams.
Nice. That would be great.
You throwing your hat in the ring?
I am.
And Councilor Williams, I don't mean to assume, but I think your science background, in addition to also the city focused business, your science background, I think could be really valuable on this committee.
Well, I think I have to appoint. And if there's anybody else that wants to, we have time.
What about Don Gannon? He's done so much work.
Sean has done a whole heck of a
A
lot,
whole
but
heck of a lot.
he has stepped back.
Has he really? Oh, makes me sad.
It makes me sad.
But his choosing.
Yes. Okay, so it looks like we've got 3 appointees here. I have 2 in the room.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to remember, do I appoint or we need to vote on these folks?
You appoint, sir, after council discussion, which I think we've had.
Okay, well, I'm still gonna ask him anyway.
I think they're all pretty fantastic.
I know Roger, Roger's doing it. It would be a great choice. Jed, you've been involved with the project forever and a day. Obviously, you would be great. And Councilor Williams, PJ, you already mentioned your background. It would be a great addition. That's my 2 cents. Any other comments?
I said they're all.
Okay, you said we were all great. I got you all. Okay, all right. I'm gonna go ahead and appoint all 3. I'm gonna appoint Roger Urban, Jed Paul, and then Councilor Williams to be number 35. Congratulations.
When you guys get to vote on who's the chair.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes,
Yes.
On the F-35 project, on Facebook, I noticed the field trip that you guys are doing with Oregon State.
Yeah, OSU Extension is organizing that, and they just reached out to us to see if we could show them the data set.
So if I do this, would it be beneficial? Will I be learning more than what I'm learning?
I think so, yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
If anybody's interested, it's Thursday, 11:30 to 1. It's $5 to register online. I found it on Facebook. Oregon State University.
That's this one.
It's Thursday.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd encourage folks to take a look at that, and I think it's exciting that this project's getting a little attention, especially in positive ways. The city of Monroe is being seen as making some necessary changes with infrastructure, and this project is a part of that. So I want to thank the folks who stepped up to sit on this committee in particular. We've got a road ahead of us, and council, I know you'll make sure that we stay on task.
Okay. All
All
right,
right.
we're gonna go ahead and flip back to the position descriptions.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. I've got this presentation already ready to go. Where are you? Here you are. My hope is if I do this right, it just appears on the screen.
There you go.
Hey, all right. So this presentation is dated from May 20th because it was presented to the Personnel Committee. So as part of our budget preparation and what the budget is really based on is staffing and management shifts that we need to make in order to improve our operational sustainability. What I mean is operate better. Make sure we can do that in the long term. We want to assign responsibilities that align with staff strengths. Maintain continuity in planning and our infrastructure. That's a big piece. I need to be able to focus on that. We need to increase administrative redundancy. So cross-training and more than one person able to provide a service. Reduce reliance on a single person, as I said. And support that long-term financial stability. That has been a theme of pretty much everything we've discussed tonight. So for the city administrator, really what we're looking at is 0.75 FTE. And I have really pared back a significant amount of the work that is administrative in nature. And I'm thinking about things of day-to-day administrative duties, payroll, and some other tasks. And you'll see how that gets distributed here in a few minutes. But I have 5 buckets, and then the next 5 slides are going to go into depth on each of these. So as a highlight, planning and land development is our first. The second bucket of my time is infrastructure and capital projects. That's different from planning and land development, which is the day-to-day things that people want to do on their land. Infrastructure and capital are those long-term things like the water and the wastewater, right? Policy guidance, grant writing and management. So it's great to go get the money, you got to manage it too. And then finance and budget oversight. So our big meeting tonight, what we did about the budget committee and creating the architecture of the budget and why we're doing what we're doing, I will continue to have that role. So a little bit more, planning and land development. Really thinking about 0.25 FTE here. That's land use applications and development review for land in the city that people want to develop. Coordinating with the planning commission, making sure that the applicant and the commissioners are in attendance and looking at the application. And there's many of those that we've successfully brought through planning commission that we need to actually continue to do. We've got more of these in the pipeline. That also means interpreting the code and implementing the code, and then planning decisions, staff reports, notice of decisions, and making sure that all of the steps are completed in the process. That's something we dropped the ball on a bunch of things in the past because there wasn't really a checklist. That's one of the things that I've got in place now. So planning and land development is about 1/4 FTE. Infrastructure and capital projects, about 0.15 FTE. So this is where I'm leading water, wastewater, and street system planning. Not the day-to-day, not the, the things that need to be purchased to fix something in the street. This is long-range planning and the tasks that we're doing right now to get there. That also means coordinating with engineers and contractors and partner agencies. So that includes projects like the 1135 dam removal, the water treatment plant and the system upgrades, the wastewater treatment plant and those system upgrades, streets that need to be improved, and the other capital projects, and sequencing those in a way like we've talked about a lot before, where we're saving money, we're mobilizing teams and saving time in a way that the way we implement it is just smarter and more strategic. Part of my job is to make sure we at least accomplish the sequencing in a way where everything works. Public works compliance as well. So Mark has about 20 or so reports that he submits on an annual basis. We've started to give him a couple of those that are his responsibility, but I'll continue to support him on those while Chuck also comes in from another angle and helps him on a lot of the things that he's already doing independently alongside Chuck. So about 0.15 FTE on policy guidance. That's planning and capital. So that's long range planning, right? So system level decision making. That includes things like the system development charges and how we unlock those funds and developing out the capital improvement plan. That also means advising on land use and infrastructure and capital investments and where we're going to spend money now, where we're going to put money aside, and where we're going to get grants or what we might leverage. And then, of course, the real deliverables that are a part of this, and I've intentionally separated this away from planning, even though it's related, is things like the comprehensive plan, that we need that revised by, my goal is the end of this year. The development code that speaks to the comprehensive plan, along with the transportation plan and the system overlay. I need the time to be able to focus in on those while we're also doing the infrastructure so that we're not missing things. About 0.1 FTE on grant writing and management. So this is, as you all saw, the capital funding strategy that we've already looked at, what grants we're applying to and when and why. Coordinating those funding opportunities with grant funders and folks who will write letters of recommendation and other agencies to support us, permitting and so forth. And then, of course, preparing and submitting those grant applications. And then post-award, tracking the grants and reporting. And we've already got a few that we're doing that on now. And then finance and budget oversight, so 0.1 FTE. So this is really routine work. This is taking the day-to-day that Dawn is producing with finance batches, which is something that we've moved to this year. You now see in your council reports, and we've talked about before. So rather than me approving every single transaction every day, I receive weekly finance batches, which include everything that happened from that week and the account that the expenditure was coded to. I'll continue to work in cooperation with Dawn on that piece. So that's just a weekly job. Signatures and approvals, that's part of that. Approving expenditures, signing off on batches, accounts payable, for example. And then also budget development and management. So part of this past year, I've spent some hours each week with Dawn, and we've spent time developing out the budget and getting to where we are now, for example. So we'll continue doing some of that too over the coming year. Those are the key pieces of the city administrator. Just to come back to there with a high level overview. What this means, and it might be helpful to look at some of the other tasks too, especially Dawn's, but what this means is that I won't focus as much on a lot of the stuff that is now on her list of items, which includes things like payroll, day-to-day administration, and standard or day-to-day HR. Any questions on city administrator focus before I look at Dawn's stuff and the other staff? Okay. And we can come back to other pieces because it does all kind of sew together. So you'll see where positions are shifted or where roles are shifted. So here in the finance specialist role, continuing to be 1.0 FTE, I want to draw your attention down to the bottom where I have put red and crossed out the court clerk. We're shaving off, a non-trivial number of hours per week, maybe 5 hours per week potentially. But so what Dawn is doing is she'll continue to focus on budget tracking and financial operations, looking back there at the top of the list. That's accounts payable, accounts receivable, doing the reporting, the things that make their way to me for approvals. She'll continue to do utility of billing management, with really a focus on accounts decision authority and higher level tasks. So less of receiving the payment, less of handling customers over the phone or in person, more of a management role for utility billing. Day-to-day administrative coordination. So if there are issues among staff or there's a question about a property, it will typically make its way to me, but there may be a quick and administrative response to this, and Dawn will essentially be that first pass. Does this need to, is this out of the ordinary truly, or is this something that's an administrative issue that we can address now? And then also address for the customer. Payroll. So this is somewhat of a big one. That's processing, coordinating with staff, and then also just the record keeping component of it. That's the stuff I'm doing right now, and Dawn's doing some of that now. Then there's also record retention, notices, and elections. In the past, I think Steve did that and Dawn did some of it. There wasn't really a dedicated person. What I'm saying is Dawn needs to be the dedicated individual responsible for that. Public records request is a part of that as well. And then coordination with the city administrator and the personnel committee on HR matters that rise to a level that necessitate that discussion level. And then also the authority to manage personnel matters on a day-to-day basis. I want to mention, and this was very well received and a very smart point to make for both Dawn's and Mark's position when we get there. The names, the titles for these roles really don't match any longer what we're asking Dawn to do. Perhaps finance manager or office manager or another title that better reflects the type of work that she'll be doing. And then personnel committee, providing that council's on board with these changes, personnel committee will be looking at a new graduated pay scale for all staff, taking into account the shifting of duties if we get to that point. But please know that salaries were increased by 10% for Dawn's role to account for this over this next year, just to make sure that we were where we needed to be for compensation. And then do please think of titles if that's something that we do move forward with. Part of Dawn's team, administrative assistant 2. So that's a half-time person, utility billing clerk, accounts coordination, really focusing on correcting billing and making adjustments and service changes, working on accounts payables, so that's invoices and data entry, and then also assisting with records retention and document management based on what's legally required. So Dawn will be in charge of managing and directing that, and then also just providing general administrative support. The other, yes, please go ahead.
When I worked for the state of Nevada, and they gave things like administrative assistant 2 and administrative assistant 1, you had to have so many hours of experience at a certain level or schooling at a certain level to be able to hold that title. Are we doing that here at the city level?
No, short answer. We're non-unionized, first off. And second off, I think the important thing is what we're trying to do is make sure all of the tasks are covered and that we're appropriately compensating people for those tasks. So an administrative assistant 2 would be focused on slightly higher level tasks than our other administrative assistant 1, which we're thinking more along the lines of like marketing and advertising and meeting coordination and customer support and engagement and document support. That's kind of how we're thinking about it at this moment. So there is an intent behind it.
So is one like at more of an entry level and the other one's more of intermediate level or something like that?
Precisely. So you could imagine the administrative assistant 2 making their way into, because we have to be building a pipeline, right? Making their way into Dawn's position when she thinks about retiring years from now, right? That's exactly the type of person that we would love to keep on board and nurture into that role. This person could also make it there, but they'd have to also kind of upgrade to, well, not that role. They'd have to upgrade to administrative assistant too and learn those tasks before they got up to that level.
TJ,
Yeah, go ahead.
just a question. Is there any commentary from the staff as to these titles, existing titles?
The existing titles, yeah. So I think the comments are those just were the titles that we had. Nobody really seemed attached to them. Like Don's not dying to keep the accounting specialist title or Mark the public works lead, but I think that titles that match their level of responsibility, especially what they're taking on now, might feel good. And we didn't really touch on that directly, but that's my sense.
How about the staff come up with suggestions to give to the personnel committee? And then the committee can come to the council with their thoughts.
Yeah, we could absolutely do that. I'm not opposed to whatever titles we choose. Be aware that whatever titles we choose are going to live in that budget as the required name. So when we make a change, we'll be sure that, and that's a good way to do it through personnel committee. We'll be sure that we vet it well.
I just got more ideas on the table would give us the better choices.
Yeah.
Fully follow what you just said there. Like, so the name, the titles are gonna be living in what?
The budget. So under all of the funds, we have each position listed and the amount of money that we distribute to that position. So the administrative assistants, those are going to remain the same. No need to change those. But if we go into the budget and make a change, we want to be sure that we're not changing it too frequently, right? We want it still to have an intent behind it.
I understood. Thank you.
And if you create a position and then remove it, you have to leave that line with asterisks on it for a couple of years. So if you retire a position entirely, right, that's the other thing to keep in mind.
Well, can we just check with what other cities are doing, like comparable titles for the work that's being done?
Yeah, there's an LOC report on this. It is all over the board. It is as wide as your imagination, really. And what I can say is that for our level, for our scale, we're doing really close to what a lot of them are doing. I can provide for the personnel committee and also for council, if you'd like, that LOC report that talks about the wage scales. It's a wage study that they produce so that all Oregon cities can see where they're landing for comparability in pay, but it also tells you how their positions are distributed.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the administrative 2, the administrative 1, and then this is a very common framework, especially for our smaller cities. Rather than having an individual at 1.0 FTE as an admin assistant, just having 2.5 FTE individuals. We're not opposed to having a full-time individual. In fact, we did before. But right now, this is how we're budgeting and the way we're thinking about it. We also have contingencies. If somebody wants to go full-time or somebody comes on or however else we make changes. Website marketing and advertising, right, would be the administrative assistant 1 role. Meeting coordination. So that's things like minutes and records. Customer support and engagement. So drafting notices that go out, like public notices, water bills, things like that. And then document support. So being part of that team that's drafting and editing city records and retaining those on a schedule based on the laws and how that works. So really, Dawn would have essentially a management level of oversight with two staff individuals who are scheduled intentionally so that you have individuals in the office at any time. That's really the goal. Okay, so Public Works Utility Worker 2, that's our lead. We call them the Utility Worker 2 in the budget, but that's the lead as we know Mark. The 1.0 FTE covers Public Works, water distribution. He continues to direct sewer operations and collections. We're bringing Mark into, I want to point your attention to a couple of desk-related tasks. So we're getting Mark out of the field. He's taken off his tool belt and he's sitting down at a computer and doing some work there for some of these things now, like permitting and compliance, joining the development review committee, and participating in discussions about infrastructure and projects. And I actually did not fix this, and Brian pointed it out at our last meeting, but I meant to write the Parks and Beautification Committee, and I kept Public Works on there anyway because I was focused on budget, so that's my bad, you guys. But I meant Public Works. So he's got some desk-related tasks in addition to a bit more oversight when it comes to Public Works, water, and sewer. And
That local peace officer too.
what's that?
Don't forget he's our local peace officer too.
Right, code enforcement.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't happen too often. It hasn't happened at all, really, except for one issue, and it was dealt with immediately. Utility Worker 1. So this is really Mark, so you consider like right-hand man. That person is scheduled or budgeted currently at 0.75 FTE, still receiving benefits. So 30 hours a week, focusing on Public Works, water, distribution and operations, as well as sewer operations. And this person would intentionally have oversight over facilities and grounds. So Mark's still the supervisor. Mark calls the shots. It's his grand vision on what gets mowed or what gets taken care of and when and how. But who executes that and is in charge of executing that is this person here. And the goal here is to relieve Mark of some of that day-to-day responsibility associated with it. It needs to get done, and he needs to set the tone and the direction. But this person needs to be in charge of either getting it done himself or making sure that George and or Ron work on it alongside him or independently.
Is this person currently the new hire?
Yes, that's exactly right. That would be Jacob.
So this is
Our
30
temp-
hours a week?
Yes, exactly right. We still have George. He's still with us. But one thing about George is that, he's been our temporary hire. He's going to remain a temporary employee until we finalize this. We are actually adding a position to the budget just to highlight that for you all. That would be this added individual here, this Public Works Utility Worker 1. 0.5 FTE. So we'd have two of these worker ones out there, but two different FTE levels. Their role would be very strictly just assisting facilities maintenance, assisting with grounds maintenance, building and janitorial support where Ron needs that, and assisting events setup because we're now taking on that task as part of our new fee schedule for events. But this person would not be responsible for driving vehicles or tractors or mowers or anything like that. This person would be specifically responsible for really taking the directives given by, going back to the prior slide, that Utility Worker 1. And I think that's a very needed role because Ron, he is very open about some, just not so easy to get on the riding mower these days anymore. And there's a lot of tasks he can be doing that aren't as strenuous for him. And that actually brings me, as a beautiful transition, to the final slide here. Facilities and grounds worker that would be continuing at 10 hours a week. Ron focusing on public works, grounds maintenance, building janitorial, and continuing to assist with events set up in City Hall and so on and so forth. I do have one more. I'll go to that in a second. But that really completes Mark's team. So you've got Mark, 30 hours under him, 20 hours under that, and 10 hours under that. He also has a team. Finally, we talked about this just a little bit ago. Development review. We have some professional engineering decisions that our engineer needs to make on a regular basis. Approving a water line, approving a sewer line, for example. This engineer also needs to be participating in our development review committee, participating in the 1135 project work, looking at planning projects as well as coordination, and then capital infrastructure as well. That's a big piece of it. So we've tripled their budget, and we talked actually just a little bit ago about this exact distribution. So I wanted to make sure that you all clearly were able to see where that's going and why. Now, I do recall I did add a couple of more slides because I promised to give you all a little more background on the municipal court operations review. And why this is really valuable. As you can see, Dawn's role is going to be focused more on managerial. And we need those hours in FTE, in my view, to support that function, especially as a growing city looking at improving and maintaining services. Here's a few slides for you to consider as a council. So we recommend, go ahead, was there a comment or a question?
You have actual court revenue at 56, 59.
Yes.
Total expended is, what was it, 4622? Isn't that is that a tilde? Never mind. I thought I was seeing a negative on the
Oh, yeah, it's a 1,000 sign.
tilde, okay.
Yeah, so no worries at all. So the things that we've identified, we recommend dissolution because there's operational concerns, and I've got a couple slides for you that touches on each of these. There's operational concerns, there's facility concerns, and then an assessment that we've made based on this. The first off, the thing to point out is that we budgeted that we would receive 10,000. We receive about half of that. And to date, we've expended about 4622. We likely will come just under that total amount, but as I was saying earlier, we've spent a lot more than that on hours that Dawn has been sort of tracking for these last few months, and we've already identified hours that were not captured in that budgeted expense from the prior budget. Municipal Court Operations Review, just a little bit about the operational concerns. So actual revenues have historically underperformed relative to assumptions. As I said, staff time associated with court operations has been difficult to track, and it does nickel and dime this account significantly, I think. Additional staffing and CGIS related training requirements are going to increase that operational complexity. So more time, more effort. Collections and invoicing, file management, records retention, and compliance activities are all very labor intensive. Like Dawn said earlier, she's doing the bare minimum, and I think that she truly honestly does want to do more. She feels like she's doing just the bare minimum, but that doesn't really make her feel very comfortable about the quality of and service of the work being provided. It's just what we're able to do, quite honestly, while still maintaining critical services. And there's these state audit and compliance obligations that continue. And, obviously we have one of those coming up in a year or so in the near future. And then the facility concerns, y'all. I wanted to make sure I touched on this. So the existing City Hall court space has significant deferred maintenance issues. Even if City Hall weren't being looked at for replacement over the next 3 to 5 years, if possible, that room itself would still need some pretty significant funding to bring it up to a space that would be considered ideal for a long-term courtroom operation. I would recommend, if council chose to maintain court, that we begin to think about reserving funding for what those upgrades would look like, and then also think about a contingency plan for if we start thinking, we're going to rebuild the city hall at some point in time. And then also, court operations do require dedicated file and record storage space within City Hall. We are somewhat meeting that requirement with a locked room, but it would be ideal to if we did the renovations discussed to make that change as well. So we're fully complying with those storage space requirements. And then the administrative assessments. Again, current operations appear pretty difficult to justify financially given the net revenue, the increasing compliance, demands on staff, deferred maintenance, those future operational obligations we know are coming up, and those indirect staffing costs, as well as any compliance risks if we're not doing things right and we get audited and have issues associated with that. So I wanted to present this to council. I don't know if council would like to make a decision on this tonight. You may want to mull this over just a little bit more, but I will say that we've spent months considering this, tracking our time, thinking very carefully about what makes the most sense to arrive at this recommendation.
Well, I personally would like to see how this would impact our code enforcement before we make a decision.
Our code enforcement by Benton County or by
us. Because Mark is our code enforcement person.
So where would it go if we didn't have the court? Exactly.
So if there was a code enforcement issue, what would happen is we'd go through the standard process of notifying the individual. Mark would deliver the notice. He is the code enforcement officer. And we, of course, would spend city time doing that. I think the benefit there is that the vast majority of those cases, people come to City Hall immediately and say, I'm so sorry, let me fix it, give me a little more time. We've had actually a few of those already. If it does get to a fine, I think Mayor Sheets, if I understand you right, you're thinking, what kind of money are we leaving on the table? Are we not recovering that staff time? Are those some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we had a situation in the past where we had, there was a fine, it was a daily fine, and it racked up very quickly. And I don't know in that situation, if we didn't have the court, I mean, and we actually got that money, how much of that would Monroe get to keep? And the rest would go to the county, or if there was no court, would it all just go to the county? I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
So that enforcement component, but also the distribution, if it does go over to the city, like what does the distribution look like?
Right. I mean, is there guidelines around that? If we don't have court,
That makes sense.
I guess
We can.
Go ahead, sorry, go ahead, TJ.
No, I'm saying I'm just taking notes and saying out loud. We can look into that and also include that in our discussion with the sheriff. Those what if questions.
Would the sheriff know, or would we have to actually talk to the county, the county clerk or someone at the county court?
I don't know.
What I think the sheriff would likely know or direct us in the right direction would be my starting point.
I think I'd just like to hear what the sheriff has to say.
We can start there. We need to get into the nitty gritty, then we'll get the next person in.
So Sheriff Gun Ardsdale is not running again, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. We can grab him before he retires.
So I will go ahead and make sure I include that in my discussion with the sheriff, as well as do our own research that we're able to find just through public information on how that distribution works and see if we can provide a little more clarity to council. Ideally by either the next budget committee or at the latest by, I'd like to have some answers, at least minimum for you by the next work session. The goal is to ideally work on dissolving the court. I want to give you an update though. In the budget, if you choose to move forward with it, it would not be an immediate dissolution. My thinking is a 6-month period of time. So if you begin the budget on the 1st of July and do indeed move forward with dissolution, that would finalize on the 1st of the year. So you'd have a full 6 months up until January 1 of running the court. And that would be intentional. That would be to make sure we communicate it to the public, make sure that we are covering all our bases with legal requirements, so on and so forth. So that also means that if you were to take the steps of actually deciding to dissolve the court, you don't have to do that tonight. You don't have to do that even next month. You could do that anytime after the budget committee passes the budget. And if you so chose to keep the court, we simply could adjust the numbers before passing it.
Also, TJ, I wanted to mention, I thought John said this to me maybe, that the judge is thinking about retiring himself. And we get a heck of a deal with this judge. And if we keep the court, we're gonna have to find another judge. And I mean, it's probably gonna cost more to get another judge.
Yes, that is correct.
We get a bargain deal with Judge Blake. So just throwing that out there too.
I don't know what we do in that case. I know we'd have to find another judge. If we have a judge, if we have a court, we're legally required to hire one. So you're right. We are fairly lucky. We've had a long tenure of somebody who's been giving us a very good deal as a small city. He works for a lot of the small cities around the state, so he understands we don't have a huge budget. But I also want to emphasize again, keep in mind the capital expenditures for doing something with that courtroom space. It does need some upgrades. It does.
City to us in Benton County size camp there.
Probably, you know. I don't know, do you know, TJ, if Madera Village has court?
My research, I don't think any of the cities around us have court. I did ask Dawn to look at this, and I know there were some that do, so I'm going off of memory here. We could actually provide you with a list of those if you were interested.
I know Harrisburg, but Harrisburg is bigger. Junction City does, and I think Oklahoma, but they're all bigger.
Yeah.
This judge is kind of funny that. Period that's board. If we want to.
Yeah.
Courthouse, I'm in some of the things.
Yeah.
And the county is going through, they're building a new courthouse, is that right?
Yes, they're jamming on it.
Is that one of the?
Yes, it is.
Curious, TJ, if any of that will have any positive or negative effects on our court, depending, obviously, if we keep it going.
Well, I think one thing to keep in mind is that you have to think about it like a business. The cost of doing business is going to reduce through economies of scale for the county. They're obviously interested in the business. For us, we have the other direction. We don't have any new funded space, and so it's going to be more challenging for us to maintain our particular court. That's how the economics, I think, would work out primarily. It's not like you're competing though, so we can keep doing what we want to do if we would like to.
Maybe they have some like camping gables or something.
Now you're thinking.
Okay. You've gone through a position, haven't you, TJ?
I have. That is the end of the presentation. I wanted to make sure the council knew what the budget is based on, and also that we had a lot of discussion around this at the personnel committee. I don't know if any of the members, and it's only a few of the Brian, Councilor Williams, Councilor Ray, and Mayor Sheets were at the meeting. I don't know if you have any comments to add.
I don't think so.
Put it very succinctly.
I think we've got it covered really well, and I don't think there are any questions.
I will Stop sharing my screen. That was our, no, hold on. I think we actually had one more item, but this should be fairly simple and straightforward. Um,
Got COLAs, merit
Yep.
increases, certifications are.
yep, that's exactly right. That was what we discussed during the last
Yeah.
personnel committee,
Yeah.
where the cost of living adjustments, we discussed maintaining our prior structure that we recommended when we gave raises to Mark and Don, which was a 3% guaranteed COLA every year, 3% increase, with up to 5% on the table for a merit increase, with a final score of your employee review being a 1 through 5. So each percent essentially tracks to each score that you could get. Nobody receives a perfect 100%. Nobody receives a perfect 5. I think both Dawn and Mark were somewhere in the mid 3s, if I'm not mistaken, in this last race. So they received somewhere around 6-ish%.
Right.
3%, as we discussed, for increases in costs would be nice if inflation were only 3%, but the reality is the cost of inflation is actually a lot higher. So we're covering at minimum that 3% and then leaving something on the table for merit. Thoughts or discussions on that? Those two pieces together.
I don't have an issue with. We're having a side conversation over here.
I have a sidebar going.
So the 3% COLA, that's been going on for quite some time, that I recall.
It's still a pretty good COLA.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know, I don't.
I don't either. I mean,
Total is 2.5.
me too, the max.
And that's it.
Yeah, and the merit is pretty good too. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
when you couple that with the COLA, it's
Yeah,
very nice. But I know, I mean, having been interim city administrator for the brief amount of time that I was.
I agree, our
these guys,
team,
they do a fair job.
they do.
And they must their best. They're awesome. So I have no issue with it, but.
Nor do
Um,
I know that I always needed clarification, the merit is a standalone 5%. And then the
Up to
COLA
it, yeah.
is 3, right, up to a 5%, but it's very difficult to get the full 5%.
So, right,
The total
It's easier
would be,
for-
yeah,
There's no room
it would be,
for growth.
so it could be,
total of 8, which,
most of the time it's.
It's in the 5s or 6s usually, but I would also say that if council, this is just a structure that I've proposed and that we really just used as a temporary measure during the time when we were making up for promised raises for Mark and Dawn. And I'm carrying that same logic forward now, but council has the authority to say, hey, 5% is too much for merit. What about 3% max or 2%? What I can say is operationally, we're meeting our obligations, and we could revisit this in successive years if we decide to make cuts. But I do think in terms of retention, we're not able to compete in a lot of different ways. This is one way where you can hold on to valuable staff members. You can really think about it in a lot of different angles, and that's your job as council. My job is just to present to you my proposal.
I have a question. What do we do if a person's at the top of the pay range and the COLA and the merit increase would take them over there? Where I work, they cut, and they cap you off, you don't get the full raise.
That's correct.
Is that
That's exactly what happens.
Okay. I don't like it, but if that's what it is, that's what it is.
A retention is definitely on my mind.
Retention should, yes, I mean, and they have done exceptional work and have for the last, year and a half.
Oh, absolutely,
And we definitely need to keep retention of our employees.
everybody.
Yeah.
Well, in the 30 years I've lived in this city, that's not seen.
So I am a proponent of keeping it as it is current state. I would like to move forward with that, but I would also, like, we have the ability to revisit this once we are in a more steady state.
Yes. Anytime you can revisit any,
Like, not, is it, we're in city council now, so do you need us to make a resolution, not a recommendation?
The city has plenty of funds for this going forward. And how often would the race be looked at, available, given?
Annually.
Sorry, yeah, it is annual thing, so it's merit.
Great.
And so the city would have the funds for it, we're putting it in the budget for them this. And I assume this would be like for all the other employees.
Everybody.
correct.
Because this coming budget would include Dawn and Mark.
Except for we volunteer employees.
Right, correct. Or if we got paid, I'd have to do something.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
why not?
Because I.
No, you're correct, though. This is
Yeah,
budgeted.
The COLA usually happens in January, correct? And then the merit increases, they happen whenever their anniversary comes up. Is that correct, TJ?
Well, that actually is, if that is how we've done it, that would be news to me. I think that we've struggled to do just the annual alone, let alone 2 a year. And I'm just matching it to 1 a year. That's what I'm doing. On your anniversary date, you get a review, and both pieces are considered as a combined number.
Okay, gotcha. That's fine. That makes it easier.
And so we were budgeting for that budget and we've got the funds for this.
Yes. So we budgeted for a sufficient increase for each position to allow for this restructuring. If council and of course the budget committee through their approval process recommend and approve all of this, we'll move forward with revising position descriptions and so on and so forth. But yes, we have budgeted for that for this year and foresee that being sustainable in the future.
I have one quick question for you, and perhaps this is not the appropriate time to address this, but it could be. So my concern is that we have a lot of part-time employees. Have you found it challenging to staff those? Because they're not eligible for PERS and they're not eligible for other things that would necessitate a review of the budget. And I just want to make sure that in moving forward, you're not having difficulty in staffing those part-time positions.
Appreciate that question. One of the things that we've done is we've been thoughtful about our contingencies. If, for example, it makes sense to bring on somebody later on full-time, we can do that. We can pivot. Right now, having 2 part-time people makes a lot of sense because it allows us to have that duplication of duties between staff members, that redundancy. We can have 2 people in the office when we want 2 people. We can also have some folks focusing on specific pieces, like assisting Dawn with financial tasks, while somebody else focuses more on things that are related to public-facing deliverables like reports and things. Yes, I think that it actually works out really well. We learned through our last application phase that we actually had several applicants who were interested in the role, which made me feel very comfortable. But I am not opposed. If somebody comes on board and they're like, I want 40 hours a week and I want to do it all, we've got the budget to do it and we can do that.
Okay, I need to do a deep dive into it, but that's PERS, that's insurance, that's a whole other ballgame. And I mean, I'm a big fan of having the maneuverability with having both part-time employees. I understand that we're able to move and groove a little bit that way, but, and I also know that part-time works well for certain types of people, I get that. Maybe they have family or other obligations and that is a very enticing opportunity, but I'm a little concerned about continuing to staff if we need to at that level. It's just a small concern, but you've eased my mind.
Fair enough. It's something we need to discuss if it's, if we want to go into it in a little more detail. It deserves a discussion. I will say one of the things we discussed with the role that would be related to like public outreach is there's an opportunity to look at hiring somebody from the high school, even who is like a senior and maybe 18 years old and wants some work. That's something we haven't explored too much in the past, but it does open up our pool of applicants a little bit in that way.
Yeah, I like that idea, just as long as there's not a liability concern or anything like that. I think that's a great opportunity.
Experience.
And get some exposure with the school district too, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I think the last thing is certifications, or I think it's the last thing in this section.
Yes. This one, I actually really enjoyed our last meeting because this kind of had like a discovery moment on that. For me, Mark was advocating really that, hey, he should receive his 50-cent raise the moment he passes the exam, but not have to wait until the state certifies it. And the argument really is that, nobody doesn't get certified. It's really a procedural step. And I brought that to personnel committee. I was advocating for paying Mark retroactively a month ago when he first got his certification, his exam and passing grade. But Councilor Williams brought up a really great point is, this is compensation for a specific task, and that task is to operate the plant independently as a certifier, as an operator one. And you can't actually do that work until the state certifies you. So logically, even though he's passed the exam, we legally couldn't have him do it and therefore compensate him for it until the time that the state actually certifies. So we wanted to bring it to council to make sure that you understood the logic between those two and to get your final nod on which direction we're going to go with this. The recommendation from committee, based on that feedback from Councilor Williams, was to wait until the state certifies for that reason.
And I still agree with that.
Yeah,
Makes sense to me.
it makes sense. I mean.
It does. It absolutely makes
gotta
sense.
stay in the legal budget.
Absolutely. But I think we all agree.
Okay. That was everything, y'all. We covered all of the other items. We are down to councilor comments and mayor's comments.
Councilors have any comments? Almost done.
Get some sleep, TJ.
Yeah, I feel bad for TJ. If you're 3 hours ahead, my goodness.
He's coming up on.
I have two things to mention if there's any councilor that is. So the two things are, we have a Pacific Power planned outage on Thursday. We were told it was 9 PM to 5 AM, so it's overnight. Yeah, I know, we were told 9, so I'll have to go back and double check that.
I called them, I called Pacific Power today because I also saw something that said 10 to
Okay.
6. They confirmed it is definitely 9 to 5.
Okay,
And it's not showing up on their website, but that is because they only put the planned outages 48 hours in advance on the website.
okay, it might show up tomorrow, doesn't it?
Well, that's good to know.
I actually got, I think I got a text or something. We also got an official email from them to TJ, I think.
Now, wasn't Monroe Telecom sold?
It was, yes. But,
Are they still operating it?
It's gonna take,
Pioneering.
from my understanding,
Yeah.
it's gonna take a few months for my understanding.
Well, they've got to get federal approval.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's gonna take more than a couple of months, probably. Yeah. Also, there is a Republic Services Recycle event. Just found out about that today. And it's on Saturday, June 6th. It is 9 AM to 2 PM. Both of these items I mentioned, the power outage, the planned power outage, and the Republic Services Recycle event, they are on the city Facebook page. I will cascade both of those out when I have time tomorrow.
Where is the old, what is it called, the lift station? I have.
Just past the park.
Just past the park.
So I just included it on my Facebook event, and included the map with the address.
They put a sandwich board out there.
Yeah.
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 It's literally.
Looks like,
the
yeah,
street
it's a sandwich board sign.
There'll be something you can see about
I'm
that.
very excited. I have a freezer I need to go.
Yeah.
It just died.
Anyway, those are the two things I wanted to mention. So I think mercifully, I think we're done. DJ, get some rest and catch up with you tomorrow.
Wait, go 5 more minutes.
Thank you, TJ.
Thank you.
Council.
We're adjourned, folks. Good night.
Good night.
Council, I think it goes back to your.